Welcome back, movie fans, to another episode of The Movie Date with Rob and Matt, a podcast for people who like movies but don't want to be too smug about it. I am Rob.
Hey, I'm Matt.
And we're just doing an episode. We're talking about we're doing, if you've listened to the other episodes, we're doing that, but like a different subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't been in the chairs for a bit.
It feels longer than it has been. Like, I know it's only been like 3 weeks, but like usually it's only like 2 weeks.
I mean, I have been okay with like letting us rest a little bit and think about something. But
me too. We have a lot of ideas. We're just kind of like slow. We're just kind of like taking it easy, man.
Well, my enthusiasm has been kind of going up because I've told you I've run into a couple people who said they've been listening to us. So shout out to people who are spreading the word, getting us out there a little bit.
Spread us out there, man.
That's got a little fire under my feet a little bit. I'm like, oh man, I mean, I'm always happy to do this, but I'm always happy to hear people are listening.
Yeah, that's the only reason I do it is because it's generally something every week or 2 weeks or whatever. I look forward to doing it. It makes me happy, chills me out.
Yeah,
we get to talk about movies and other nerdy stuff.
I just lose myself in it.
Yeah, let's talk movie news. Everything's been pushed back. Your birthday was pushed back. Yeah. Your Christmas is pushed back. Your pregnancy that's pushed back somehow. Don't ask me.
Halloween's happening. This one thing I saw is like, so we're just gonna be vibing in the kitchen as Dracula. Is that what we're doing? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I never really celebrated Halloween much.
It's my favorite time of the year.
I like it.
Favorite time of the year.
I'll go to a costume party. But
yeah,
as far as trick or treating, I'm just like, I'm gonna stay in I'll watch a movie.
Well, that's me now. That's me now. I'll make a couple of spooky cocktails and enjoy something
nice.
Rewatch some old ghost hunting shows from when I was a kid.
God, they're all the same. I hate those shows.
Man, there's the one I always go back to is there was a show on like Fox Family or ABC Family called The Scariest Places on Earth. Yeah. It came out.
They send a paranormal. Don't even tell me. They send a paranormal team in there. Are there ghosts?
No.
And then they have night vision footage.
No.
And then let me finish. Because like it's always the same. These shows are the same. I always hate them. And then like they get in there like this is the bed where Adolf Hitler died or something. And then they like get underneath it like what the fuck was that? And then they play the footage back and there's like a weird gray fuzzy part for half a second. Was that a ghost? We don't know.
You'll
Credits.
See an anomaly.
You'll watch 50 more episodes and then you realize each episode's the same and it doesn't matter and it's probably all bullshit anyway.
Or my favorite is they're just sitting around and then all of a sudden, what was that?
That was a guy making noodles in the other room.
Let's check the EVPs.
Yeah.
Now this show was before all that. Yeah. This was just like, I mean, it kind of invented it too because there were two shows going on, and I said there was MTV's Fear.
I remember that,
which is kind of like the best version of this kind of show, where the producers just sent them to a location that was creepy and abandoned, and then made everything up. Everything. Like you can go to the Wikipedia article and they'll be like, well, this is an actual like place that's reported to be haunted, but they changed the name of the location, they changed all the history and everything about it, and it was all bullshit.
That's hilarious.
And then they would just put a bunch of like, yo, what's up? My name's Kyle. I'm from Sacramento, California. I'm very excited to be going to South Korea to this abandoned military facility.
Exhibit hosts, because from Pimp My Ride, he's also doing double duty on these ghost shows. I'm Exhibit Man. We're going into this
poltergeist in your poltergeist.
There's that Aziz Ansari joke that Exhibit should just host a show where he takes care of kids. It's called, instead of Pimp My Ride, it's Pimp Your Life or whatever, where he takes your kids and you get a do-over. You get to go back to do that trip or whatever. Anyway, but
that's fun.
I've always said that I would literally sleep in the Amityville Horror Mansion inside of a coffin in like the room where the most murders or whatever happened. I have no patience.
The Amityville case is
a bunch of bullshit.
Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. There was murders, of course, but I'm a bit of a paranormal nerd.
I understand. I would sleep in Alcatraz underneath whatever bed.
It's like all night. Al Capone's bunk
for all night for $5. Like I have no patience for it. I'm not easily scared.
That's fair.
I don't even like.
He's flexing right now too.
I am. I'm like. I'm
he's
such a
showing
man.
his tattoo that says "I ain't afraid of no ghosts."
I have a Gorgon. I have Medusa. I have a healthy respect for monsters and stuff. But like, I don't.
Go hang out and find the Frogmen, the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah. I will go to whatever H.P. Lovecraft house he based the Rat in the Walls or whatever off of, and I will sleep in it soundly. You're like, hey Rob, you wanna? And I'll be.
Yeah.
Like, I won't even care.
There'll just be vases flying across the room and blood oozing from the walls, and you're just like, shut the fuck up. Trying to sleep
I'm
here.
trying to sleep here, bitch. Like, or whatever. But yeah. Sounds like a funny show, though.
I go back. Well, it turns out so it had like Zelda Rubinstein from Poltergeist voicing it, doing the narration. She had that creepy voice that would always be, "This house is haunted, child," and so it'd always be that. And it was hosted by Linda Blair from The Exorcist.
Oh God! Of course
and they would
it is.
they would just go to like it was hyper like super creepy and all this.
William Friedkin did the cinematography or whatever.
Oh, that'd be yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it was a lot of just like weird like sound effects and
Sure.
everything. And one of them was like, I found this out recently. It's freaking hilarious. They interview people, of course, who have had experiences like, I was in the cemetery and I had somebody grab me and I felt really scared. You look at the name and they would like, we went on ISBN to find the person that was in this, and it turns out she's an actress that's been in like Merlin and a few other BBC shows. And
So it's all fake.
Yeah, and
That's
her
great.
character's name, her character, the person being interviewed was Awasa Tact, and she's talking about being attacked by a ghost. And I'm like, that's just lazy.
I just love it. I like to think it's a wink and a nod. It's making fun of these shows because if it's serious, then I'd be like, I'd laugh at it. But now I get to laugh with it.
It doesn't hold up. It's just nostalgia for me. Like
Fair
it's
enough.
just nostalgia. Same with MTV's Fear.
I wish ghosts were real. It'd be more interesting.
My authority on the deal is I choose to believe in something mostly because it makes life more interesting. Whether it's real or not, I'm like, well, we've had thousands of years to prove this, and yet we haven't, except for some blurry picture of somebody walking in the background. Yeah. It's like, we should have probably figured something out. There's more dead people on this planet than alive, so.
Yeah. And like whenever I see whenever I watch a horror movie or like a particularly a good horror movie, and then you it's based on true events, and you read the true events, it's always bullshit. Mm-hmm. What's there was like the one from the family in Pennsylvania. I can't remember what it was called.
Is it called A Haunting in Pennsylvania?
I don't know.
Because there's a haunting in Connecticut. There's a haunting in Tennessee.
Or maybe it was a haunting in Connecticut, and really it was like the story was this kid felt he was being haunted by demons and ghosts, and they took him to a therapist, and they said he might have this like disorder or whatever, but at the same time he was experiencing these, like the producers of the movie were like interested in like doing a movie. And they asked him well, since you started taking your medication, has anything happened? And then the wife, the mother made him hang up. Because of course not. He's just a sick kid. Yeah, it's bullshit.
He was having a bad time.
Or like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, inspired by true events. Yeah, but there's not a Chainsaw Family of Mutants.
No,
it's
they based it on Ed Gein, who's just a poor weirdo who was in Minnesota.
Who killed two people, maybe
horribly killed two women, but mostly just dug up bodies and just was like hanging out with them and everything. I'm not letting Ed Gein off the ticket here. I'm just saying.
No, and he would
poor Ed just needed help.
Take their skin and put them into lampshades and whatever. He was a poor disturbed man or whatever.
But he wasn't Leatherface.
No,
he made leather faces.
And the number of people who were like that and were like, that's a true story, right? Like you can drive past the house, it's there. I'm like, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not real.
Well, it's just like there's been a lot of gross like supernatural speculation over the house of. They did a documentary on Netflix recently about that guy who murdered his wife and his children and all that, Chris something or other.
The wrestler, Chris Benoit?
No, not Chris Benoit. Oh. No, this happened this year. This happened last year. This guy's still alive. He's in prison now. He's never gonna see the light of day again.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, he essentially this is so terrible. He committed family-side, essentially, killed them all. Terrible. And then was like trying to make up this whole Gone Girl situation. It's like, I don't know what happened to them. And he was able to get away with it for a while and then like screwed up huge with like a couple of evidence things. And eventually just like they got him. But now people are like, they think the house is haunted. I'm like, it's a little too fresh, guys. It's a little too fresh. We could talk about 100-year-old haunted houses because it's 100 years old.
The more modern the haunted house, the more I'm like, it's bullshit. What does the ghost want? The Wi-Fi password or whatever? Like, I don't like if it's 100 years old and they're like candles, Ebenezer, like that. We believe that.
The ghost is in the Wi-Fi.
But we won't believe. that movie VHS or whatever. Like the more
There's some
it's
fun
like
clips
you know what
in VHS.
you know what it reminds me? It reminds me of like religious miracles.
Yeah.
Like thousands of years ago, God would wipe out cities off the face of the earth.
And now it's like,
Or he
oh,
would,
Jesus
like-
is facing a thing of toast.
Yeah.
Like, man, we've really dropped down from Jericho.
Yeah, like it's like his
He made a
closer,
fire tornado.
The
and like,
closer to modernity, the less
Yeah.
impressive his powers become. Same thing with ghosts,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. I think the
it's
best
fun.
I
It's
think
fun. It's
we're
fun.
in we're in the witching season. We have a Halloween-esque episode coming up next week or whatever that we're gonna do.
Yes.
I think the scariest scary movies are actually like, what if this really happened to you? Like you ever see the movie Eli Roth's Green Inferno?
I know all about it. I've seen the clips. I don't need to see the movie. Or something like.
It might be worth seeing. It's not scary because they're
No,
not
it's violent.
It's violent,
Yeah.
but like the acts of it and how these people are just like they're just cut off from the world and they're raised in a different society and they'll literally eat you. And like it's like they're not evil people, but that is a scary situation, and I did feel like that is kind of terrifying.
Well, I think it's agreeable that the scariest stories are the things where it's actual people who can hunt you. Like I remember seeing Wolf Creek.
I've seen it.
That's one.
That's terrifying.
And that's based on a true story. There
Yes.
was a guy out in the outback that was hunting people and tourists, or the Snowtown murders, which is also Australian.
Yeah, I remember the
like-
one where she's like, she thinks she's gotten away and she's in like a car driving miles. He just pulls out a rifle and pops her tire.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing, and he
There's
just
nothing you can
runs
do.
her down.
You're just in the hands of a madman.
That guy is that is
That
terrifying.
actor who played him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ballsy.
And like the one that like stays with me forever is like the head on a stick. Because he doesn't, for the people listening, if you haven't seen the movie, he does not cut their head off and put them on a stick. What he does, it's called a head on a stick. And he takes a knife and he puts it right at the bottom of your spine and he twists it around. And then you're paralyzed and you're just like, and you're a head on a stick. And he does it to a girl in that. And it was awful. And like, it stayed with me
Yeah,
for a
it's
while.
a very one of the better made modern exploitation horror movies.
Yeah, it's sort of like a what's the famous one with Burt Russell,
Kurt Russell?
Burt not
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds.
Oh,
and
Deliverance.
John, yeah, it's like
John
that,
Deliverance, yeah.
but better and worse and more terrifying and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or whatever. And I think it's reversed.
Deliverance is mostly just North Englanders' fear of Southern people.
Yeah.
Which I mean, appropriate, but
Yeah, I think it's like it's the Australian version of that, but worse.
Yeah.
Because like people in Sydney are like, don't go to the fucking outback.
yeah,
There's
don't
a
go to
li-"
the outback.
But really,
If the spiders and the scorpions don't scare you, maybe that's not a knife, Will.
yeah, I think that like that's
It is Crocodile Dundee meets Ted Bundy a little
It
bit.
is, but like I feel like if you really went to the outback, it's just a bunch of fucking hooligans who fucking live like rednecks out in the wilderness. Like it's just
I mean,
that
mostly-
they're just Australian rednecks.
Yeah,
whatever.
Every country's got their rednecks.
Yeah, that
The worst thing that happens if you're in the outback is you pop your tire and you're exposed to the elements.
yeah.
Or one of the many animals that can kill you.
It's just like that's just one of those like horror stories that like that could, or even like a Green Room.
Yeah,
that's
we talked about it before. That's kind of a horror movie, and it's something that's like a worst case scenario is there's a competent.
Imagine having to live through that. Like
Yeah.
that's and like not to mention Anton Yelkin's sausage arm.
Yeah.
that happens. Like that's the kind of terror that like. And I'm not. There are traditional horror movies. I say that in quotes, like they're not traditional or whatever. But like that I do like a Hereditary. I've extolled its virtues many times. But
and
like
that's a story about demons.
yeah, like it's a more
it's a
traditional
supernatural story.
Yeah, a supernatural horror story or whatever. Not to mention like, but I also love a good B movie.
Yeah, me too.
I love like Jeepers Creepers.
Jeepers
I love
Creepers
it.
is good.
I
I
love
saw
it.
Jeepers Creepers as a kid. You got some of the good '80s ones.
You like Candyman? Is a franchise you're a fan of? Like
well,
those-
the first Candyman I think is an excellent movie.
Yeah.
really solid.
like most horror franchises, it was driven into the ground by the time you got to 4 or 5.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there are only like 3 Candymen though.
But so I'm,
They were all
I'm a-
Tony Todd,
I'm
so.
okay with some B movie. I even like some
Speaking
of
of Tony Todd, the Final Destination movies are just super fun.
Yeah, you like those a lot more.
Yeah.
A lot of people. A lot of the people who it seems like you throw a stick in the air, the number of movie podcasts are like people watch a bad horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of those movies are bad, and I think some of them are good, bad, or whatever.
Well, that's absolutely
in the sense
yeah.
that like movies are like about like it's not going to win awards for acting or screenwriting or anything, but for what it is about, it's fine.
it's things like a lot of late '90s stuff, like The Faculty.
Yeah.
which is B movie on purpose, but it's very good. Or The House on Haunted Hill, which is one of my favorites with Jeffrey Rush. I love
Pretty
that
good.
movie to death. We'll talk more horror movies and things like that
On our later episodes, because we ain't talking about this.
We ain't out of
now.
Halloween yet.
We're talking about superheroes again.
Let's talk about. Well, let's also talk about true horror 2020 and what it's done to the movie industry.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like I said, everything's been pushed back. Wonder Woman pushed back.
Yeah, we're
Dune.
gonna have to get very creative about our episodes coming up because I don't think we're gonna be at the theaters.
Well, a friend
anytime
of mine wants to do Ford v Ferrari and join us for an episode, so maybe we could do that because I've
Sure,
been
why
wanting to
not?
see it. I like James Mangold.
Love to
But
have a guest on, talk about something.
Yeah,
like that or something.
what hasn't been pushed back? Ironically, the only thing that I can look forward to that's coming out is the Snyder Cut. And Zack Snyder has not, I was gonna say stumbled, but I don't think he stumbled his way into it. Like, it's just the world has given him this weird second chance at Justice League because everything is gonna be gone. And he's gonna be the only one with a giant you gotta watch this movie
You
thing.
got it.
Like, so he's in the perfect position right now.
I mean, it's still coming out next year.
Yeah, it's coming
so
out
there's
early next year. Is
Yeah.
the tentative release schedule or whatever.
And for a lot of these film productions, like
They're done. Dune is done.
They're
It's
done.
getting moved back. Wonder Woman moved back. Bond.
Dune, Bond,
Yeah.
And again, I can't stress the frustration so many other countries must feel that followed the guidelines.
Taiwan has had 7 deaths
Yeah.
from this.
New
South
Zealand's
Korea has
down
had
to like
300.
nothing.
Yeah.
Like, how many of them did something really ridiculous, like listen to their scientists,
Yeah.
and got themselves out of this?
But Fauci said in the beginning, don't wear a mask. He
Yeah.
said that so he didn't panic and cause you guys to go out and buy lots of masks so
'Cause
the
you already-
surgeons wouldn't have any masks.
Yeah, 'cause-
but now he says you should wear the masks.
Yeah.
We have 210,000 dead people. This is not like the expert said it would be like 2 million. The 2 million figure was if we literally did nothing, we're doing really bad.
I remember that. I
Wear
had
the
I
masks.
saw the newspaper, like from the New York Times, months ago, where it was like it showed the entire country in red and dark red blotches. Like, this is what happens if nobody does anything.
Yeah.
Is it's just scorched earth, and it's like we're not scorched earth. We're just a really good wildfire.
Trump hasn't done well just because we're at 200,000 or 10,000 or whatever, 210,000 and not 2 million.
Right.
I just want to make that very clear.
You can't use failure as a way to say, well, we didn't fail that bad. Anyway.
we are the worst in almost every metric, and we are the worst in the sense that we are 4% of the population and 21% of the deaths of the entire world.
And this is
We're not
normally-
doing good.
Yeah,
Wear
this
the
is normally
masks.
something where it's like other countries, quote unquote, less fortunate than us are the ones that get plagued with any plague. Now we're the ones that everyone's just like.
But Matt, the
"Gee
reason
whiz."
those countries aren't doing good, Matt, is because they don't have freedom.
They don't have freedom.
They don't have freedom.
Man, I'm
Yeah.
just so winning.
Yeah.
Well, here's
And,
what
and you know what? They're not wrong because, like, in South Korea, they literally, like, everyone had like this has a respect for authority.
Yeah.
And when the government says, like, our scientists are telling us to wear masks, kind of stay inside
Well,
for most
they
of
like
it.
had a task
They didn't
force,
shut down
like,
their economy.
the first day, and then
Yeah.
then contact traced to the first guy and was like, I think they said it was equivalent to them building a battle plan, like a military tribunal. And
They
it's
had
like,
it
how
under
do we do
control
this?
in a month.
Yeah.
Because everyone listened to the experts. No one was like, but my freedom.
It's like, South Korea is not so concerned about that as much as making
Same
their
thing for
country work.
Japan.
They
And-
live next to a country that every now and then wants to kill them.
Yeah.
So.
And Taiwan, Japan, they both did really great too. And a lot of people are like, well, those countries have a healthy respect for authority and they don't have the American spirit of freedom. I'm like, oh my God, man. We were surrounded by idiots sometimes.
Well, here's
aren't we,
one
Matt?
thing we don't have the freedom, and other countries won't have the freedom, seeing movies
Soon.
that
We've
they have
held the
every-
world hostage
Yeah.
with our movie.
because we're like sorry, if it's not appearing at Man's Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, you don't get to see the new James Bond movie that's definitely complete.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to see Dune. Suck it. While we are just literally pooping our pants over here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to be clever about whatever we're going to talk about coming up. Obviously,
we got some plans. We got a couple, but
Yeah.
we'll have to definitely dig deep and find some interesting content and maybe some more blind date episodes for sure.
Which is still going to be a fun thing. You know,
Yeah.
there are obviously going to be streaming movies that are going to hit. Things are going to get popular. Series, all that.
We can definitely squeeze in. I just finished The Haunting of The Haunting of Hill House.
Haunting of Hill House.
So we might do an episode on that as well.
The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I just finished as well.
But what's next in movie news? Speaking of 2020, do we want to talk about the Biden gap?
Nah. Wait, it's not.
People like different candidates. That's all. That's all.
By the time our next episodes will be out, we'll be past, I think, the election period. No. Well, we'll get the Halloween episode out.
Yeah.
First, I think. Well, the only thing we were just looking at the Matrix 4 is filming.
Yeah. Thankfully. It was supposed to start at the beginning of COVID-19, and then it dropped out, and now it started again in August, and where are we now? August, September, October. So it's been filming for 3 months, hopefully.
Which is that's
a bunch of stuff.
Pretty stout.
Because usually a film of that size takes about 5-6 months to shoot. Maybe 4 or 5 if you're lucky.
And then the rest is post production.
But a lot of films are doing that. Like the Batman dropped out, and now it's started filming again the last few weeks or whatever. So that one's been delayed.
We've seen the great picture of the bat robe.
Oh yeah, when he's on set or whatever.
He's wearing just a big black robe, bathrobe.
A lot of people
love it.
A lot of people are bitching about the stunt double or whatever in it. The stunt double is like like when he's on the motorcycle, he doesn't have his cape on, and like, what the fuck, man? His cape isn't on. Like, it's gonna be CGI'd on. I'm like, 1, it's a danger. 2, that's very common practice.
Yeah,
to CGI the cape.
Like, I think we've got CGI cape technology down.
Yeah,
like it's look, Spawn.
Opened the door,
yeah,
like Saving Private Ryan. It was the first guy out of the
Spawn
boat.
Crawled so Superman could walk.
That's
okay,
right.
And now we can only go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks to Z. Snides, it's come a long way.
Yeah, and then thanks to McFarlane, before whoever directed the Spawn movie, that cape is another character.
It
like
sure is.
They can CGI a cape. You ain't gonna bother.
But they're like this weird, like, oh God, there's a weird thing about movie fans where like if it's CGI, you gotta bitch about it, even if you don't know what it's gonna look like when it's finished. And I was like, CGI is okay. It gives us the ability to do a lot of great things
as long as it's accompanied with something.
And also, most of that trailer is all practical.
Yeah,
the Batman trailer we saw.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's gonna be like, it's not that kind.
It's
of
not
movie.
Avatar. Like, it's not gonna but it's not like that room with you don't
have to wear goggles and lossless headsets to enjoy the movie.
Right. It's not like that scene where Pattinson walks in and talks with oh shoot, what's his name? Jeffrey Wright. Yeah. Everything else is green screen. It's just you cut to, speaking of stuff that's special effects, like they also just showed because I just listened to an interview with Simon Pegg talking about the new Mission Impossibles.
Oh yeah, they're doing those.
They're filming the next 2 side by side as one part 1, part 2.
That's cool. That franchise needs a end goal.
It does, because
they're great.
I liked
like them
Fallout. I could talk a lot about this series. I liked Fallout, but it definitely didn't have the stakes of a movie like it.
I like that. Oh God, what's his name? He's the overarching bad guy of the last one and before.
Oh, I don't remember the actor's name, but Lane is the actor.
He has this kind of voice like this.
Yeah, he's showed up in Rogue Nation, and he's become kind of like the main arch.
Kind of. And I really like him. I've seen him in movie shows like The Borgias, and like I saw him in a horror movie that I really liked. But I liked Henry Cavill as it's cool seeing Henry Cavill not be Superman.
Yeah.
I even love the part where Tom Cruise saves him after he does the Halo jump or whatever. And then they get to the bottom. He's like, "Oh, you forgot your oxygen." Like, no, I gave you mine to save your life, you son of a bitch. Like,
how dare you?
Yeah. But
he's a force of nature in that movie.
He's good. Even watching him just be flustered when he gets his face scarred and stuff, and he just screams. Like, he's always like a very reserved. I just watched Enola Holmes with him.
Yeah, that looks fun. That looks really fun.
It's all right.
Yeah, well, it's a kids movie.
It's a Netflix movie.
Yeah, it's a Netflix kids movie. Like we got 11 here on contract. What other movies do you want to do?
She's good. I don't.
She seems charming.
She's like in awe of her brother's abilities, but we don't get to see a lot of Sherlock Holmesing.
That's not his movie.
It isn't, but
it's also based on a book series, like a young reader's book series.
Do you know the kerfuffle about the copyright of the Sherlock Holmes to movie things, and like, so Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, this is going to be such a huge tangent. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, indeed.
And then he decided to retire the character because he was tired of writing it or whatever. So he threw him and Moriarty off
the Reichenbach Falls. Yeah. That ends the series, except
It doesn't because
because a bunch of people came back and were just like,
we like him.
we like that Sherlock Holmes. Write more of them.
This is what happened, basically. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's like, I shall never write another Sherlock Holmes book again. And then his publisher's like, well, we give you a lot of money. Very well. Like,
what do you want?
so when so there's you can break Sherlock Holmes's his series into sort of two halves: pre-waterfall and post-waterfall, or whatever you want to call it. Before he falls off the waterfall, he's kind of a prick. He's kind of a
well, he's a little hard-edged, pretentious.
kind of keeps people on the outside, doesn't tell them the plan. After the waterfall, he makes the character more likable-ish or whatever. Now the version
makes it more charming, more like, let me think. Before he's just like,
this is gonna make you
all idiots.
This is gonna make you laugh. I think the versions pre-waterfall are all in public domain and can be made movies about.
So Hound of the Baskervilles, all that.
Everything post waterfall is not. And
Is that Baskervilles?
You'd have to get the. I think it is.
Yeah.
I think that's post waterfall or whatever.
Because it's like
those ones are not public.
Study
domain.
in Scarlet, like the final game.
Sherlock Holmes is barely in the Hound of Baskervilles or
Right.
whatever. But he's there for like a few seconds and he shows up at the end. It's real bullshit. But I like that story. But at the very end, so all those post waterfall are not in public domain, and you have to negotiate with the state to get the rights to do blah 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 blah. Here's the thing, and none of those movies or books is it referenced that he has a sister. It's a spin-off fiction or whatever,
Right.
which is fine. It's not uncommon.
It's a
or whatever.
YA book. You
Yeah.
know, it's
They are saying
like James Bond Jr.
the reason Sherlock Holmes is in the movie and stuff is because they're saying that he's her older brother, so he would obviously show up in the movie, but they're saying they don't have permission to do that because he's nice in the movie, which means he's not public domain. He's one of the other
He's not an asshole.
He's the
so
post-waterfall Bond, which you have
Bond.
to get rights for. Or Bond. He should be Bond. He's the post-waterfall.
Bond.
He's the post-waterfall Sherlock Holmes, which means he's nice, which means he's not public domain, which means you have to get permission from the company to use it. Because he's nice, and he is nice in the movie.
Yeah.
He's very endearing. His brother Mycroft is a real piece of shit in the movie.
which he needs to be. Mycroft needs to be a prick.
There's a 20-minute long section where they just send her off to boarding school because their mother has mysteriously vanished, and she
right. That's Helena Bonham Carter. Right?
yeah, she's good too.
Yeah, of course she is. I imagine.
And she's upset that like when the brothers got old, they just kind of left her and her mother there to just. It's a very feministy movie, and I can see a lot of people shitting on it for that. They left her there, and Helena Bonham Carter is very much like a wild child, and she raised her daughter to fight. Like she literally there's fight scenes. She's punching a 10-year-old in the face or whatever.
Right.
It's so weird,
but that's kind
she's
of
teaching her how to be a woman of the world and to take care of herself. But she comes there and Mycroft is like, oh, this is not going to do at all. She's coming in her pajamas. We sent her off to boarding school, turn into a real woman that a husband will one day want. And Sherlock Holmes doesn't seem to like it, but is also like Mycroft is the head of the estate, and he gets to make these decisions and whatever.
Because Sherlock's a man of the world and all that.
Kind of,
sort of.
I wish, and the greatest tragedy is that I think that the movie would benefit from their relationship because it's her solving a mystery on her own while Sherlock kind of solves a mystery on his own. There's a great little scene at the end is where he realizes Sherlock solves the mystery too that Enola is on, and he goes to Inspector Lestrade, who is his character from the books or whatever.
Lestrade, yeah.
And he comes and he's like, they're going to kill the boy. He's like the Duchess wants it because he doesn't want him to be elected to the House of Lords because he'll cast a vote to end the women or to support the women's suffrage movement or give him the vote. And he goes, very good, Sherlock. And he goes, how do you feel knowing your sister solved it yesterday? And he's like, what? And then as he leaves, he has a newspaper and he leaves and he's got a nice little chip and he goes, ha! He's happy that his sister showed him up.
That's cute.
It's not the worst movie. I just feel like at the end I just felt like a big, what is the point of this? And I feel like the movie would have been better as Sherlock teaches her how to use the deductive reasoning that he's famous for. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I miss the Guy Ritchie interpretation of the Master of Disguise, and it's lacking.
The man is quick on his draw and everything.
And the fact that he's in the books, he's kind of a drug addict, he's kind of a scoundrel.
Well, that's kind of what I love about that first series of Sherlock, of the Benedict Cumberbatch, the modern take. Is
it's kind of that.
It's that character with a little more
a modern
take, and his whole I'm a functioning sociopath, a little that not neurotypical kind of
Henry
thing.
Cavill's too nice and he's too charming and he's too not like. And again, like that's why they said he's nice Sherlock, which means you didn't have to.
He's not a weird outsider like obsessive Sherlock, which is what Sherlock Holmes started.
But there's little pieces of it where you see like he saw soot or like soot fingerprints on one of the books, which means he felt that the mother was hiding something in the chimney. So you get little pieces of it, but you don't get enough to make me like it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
I imagine there's going to be a second one where they're like, ooh, that relationships works. Let's get them on the same thing. Maybe let's bring in a Moriarty or something, like depending on if you want to keep him alive. Speaking of Moriarty, there's now a popular
Henry Cavill would be a great Moriarty. Cast him and then in some other Sherlock movie as Moriarty.
He would be, because I mean that's kind of spoilers a little bit for Mission Impossible Fallout. He's kind of a Moriarty in that movie a little bit. He's the anti Ethan Hunt.
He's Moriarty's thug essentially.
A Sebastian Moran. Yeah. There is a manga and anime series that just started getting animated that's kind of getting some strength called Moriarty the Patriot, and it's essentially like it's the Moriarty brothers when they're young discovering their disdain towards like the classist of society, so they turn to crime. And of course they're all just like handsome bishi anime boys. It's aimed towards young women to enjoy because they're all like blonde, beautiful, but they're all like, like we all come together. My name is, William James Moriarty, and I hate this society of England that oppresses the poor, and the only way to do it is by attacking it.
I feel like of all the Sherlock adaptations, the only one that's come... I haven't seen the one with Ian McKellen where it was like a few years ago where he has to find something, but he has...
Mr. Holmes?
But he has dementia.
Yeah.
Or dementia.
Well, it's like old Mr. Holmes or something.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a lighthearted...
solve a mystery while dealing with his own ailing mind, essentially. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the only ones that get the tone right, or even close to right, because I've only read 2 Sherlock Holmes books, is the Guy Ritchie one. And I don't like the second one. It's too much slow-mo and action and humor, whereas the first one is more about like solving the mystery, and the dynamic between him and Jude Law is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. They're great in that movie. And I like the way it flows. It's a very fun movie.
Yeah.
I like that one.
The second one is too much style, but the first one gets the balance right. You get Mark Strong, which is always great, and he does like lots of like master of disguise, where he disguises himself.
Where he just like it's a shot of him just like grabbing people's hats and everything, just like, and by the end he's just has a prosthetic nose, and he's like, oh my God,
let me get a little bit of like, yeah.
That's really fun.
There needs to be a balance between the Henry Cavill interpretation and like that Robert Downey Jr. where he's just gross and dirty.
Did you ever watch Sherlock?
I watched the first season.
Yeah,
I like it
because
I just there's so much TV I never get around to it.
Because going back to me loving I can't remember his name now. Oh, my brain's normally I'm able to shoot these things, but he was in 1917. He plays Moriarty in Sherlock.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. He shows up for 5 seconds and tells them that they're dickheads for going on this mission or whatever.
Yeah, and he is spectacular in that but he's not the same Moriarty who's just who's the behind the scenes evil professor. He's just kind of like, oh, hello there, and but he's having such fun doing it.
Yeah,
I just read a new the last volume of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that takes place.
He's the bad guy in that series too.
He's a bad guy in the first one.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, but the effects of his work kind of continues because there's a moment where in a part of it, Sherlock Holmes in the graphic novels only shows up once because Alan Moore's like, I don't really have the rights to him, so I can't really do much.
You gotta do it. You gotta be careful. You gotta use the public domain one.
So he's using the public domain to show the battle at Reichenbach Falls, where him and Moriarty meet, and they have a sword fight essentially. And
Sherlock realizes he will lose and just takes them both over.
No, he beats him soundly. Because it's like, because in this it's like you're like a weird ailing old man, and I'm like at the peak of physical ability. I'm just gonna throw you off a waterfall.
Wait, Moriarty beats him, or
no? Sherlock Holmes beats him.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he just
I don't like the fact that he just violates years of canon, but like,
yeah, he just whoops him and just is like bye, and Sebastian Moran finds him like wounded and everything, and he's like, okay, so I didn't die, I just kind of refixed myself, got myself in the government, and changed my identity to M. So now I'm in charge of the British government while also running my crime lord thing. But in this new series called Tempest, it's supposed to be the end of the whole story arc, which I couldn't even begin to tell you what it's about. Like,
yeah,
I skimmed through a lot of it just so I can see more of Kevin O'Neill's art. And like, I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Something about Prospero from Shakespeare coming
from
to
fucking the Tempest.
Yeah,
oh, cool.
It's called the Tempest.
That's
yeah,
cool. I just thought that was a happenstance or whatever.
Because there are other leagues. And one was like the original one.
It's so dense. It's so away. This is why I haven't read it. Yeah, it's so dense.
Like the first league was like Prospero's Men, which is Prospero.
This
Ariel.
is like me telling you to read the Constantine comics.
Yeah,
like there's 40 like volumes, and
lots of lore.
And by this point, the person who you thought was dead has come back, which he's possessed by. Like oh god, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Like this one has like Don Quixote in it, and Captain Alsmuch, and like all these.
You can't make characters up from like these. They're not turn of the century characters. They're supposed to be 18th century Victorians. Don Quixote's from like. I don't know.
Well, no, it takes place in like the 1500s. Like it's like every era has had a new league, but they're based on characters that existed in fiction at that time.
What is the purpose of the league? To save the world?
Yeah. But also,
because Alan Moore doesn't seem like he'd give a shit about that,
right? Well, that's kind of the whole thing. Is like, oh, we're bringing together a group of monsters to fight England's monsters, and in the end, it's like, actually, you're just kind of gonna do what we want you to do, even if that might be some corrupt, evil stuff. Because it's always like the functionaries are part of the governmental problem that creates its own problems. So then they become like, well, we're kind of on our own to have to solve the world's evil, because eventually it starts getting worse and worse and worse.
Before we keep talking for 4.5 hours, what's the coolest lineup of the league that you like? Because there's a million lineups, I'm sure.
Like it's actually in the canon.
Yeah.
There's one that happens after the original league, and it is the turn of the century, where it's and I love whenever they show it. They don't show it too often, but it's a main part in the third series Century and the Black Dossier, which is like a side story. And it's in the 1890s through the 1910s, before World War I.
Yeah.
And it's Mina Murray, Orlando the Immortal, which we talked about before.
Who is simultaneously a man or a woman.
Right. I got that wrong before. They originally were a character pre-Greco history called Bio. And then kept going through time, shifting genders.
But they just decided on being Orlando.
Right, because that's a character that shows up pretty frequently in fiction. And then a couple of characters I like, but I don't know them because they're from more obscure fiction, which is A.J. Raffles, who is one of the pulp gentleman thieves around the time of, speaking of Sherlock Holmes, Arsène Lupin. But our A.J. Raffles is a character sort of based on that was popular in Victorian England around that time. And he's just like a gentleman thief. He's a swashbuckling gentleman thief with a domino mask.
Sounds like what they turned the Invisible Man into.
Yeah. Okay. So A.J. Raffles is kind of like the Lancer. Thomas Carnacki, who was kind of
very familiar.
It's a precursor character to a lot of like characters like Constantine. He's a dark magic occultist magician who can see the future. Yeah, okay. And in fact, they bring in Anton LaVey and Crowley into that plot line because it's about the Antichrist.
Okay.
But that was that league that came up.
No big monster tank man.
They didn't have any. There weren't any. It was just kind of a smaller league that got up, and the big event that they had was they went up against a team of French ne'er-do-wells in the Paris Opera House in the same caves that were created by the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, it's the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, he's not in it. He's long dead by that point, but his caves are still there. And so they're fighting all these characters like Phantamos and like Zenith the Albino and like Robert the Sky Pirate. It's really fun.
What sounds so cool is like this is an idea that you could go. I love the idea of a team that revolves
around characters that are in fiction.
yes, that too, a revolving door team. There's always a version of the team. In fact, that's one thing I liked about, the idea of the Snyder Cut is that there was a Justice League 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Comprised of the Greek gods, and now like you got to
and now we got to catch up to who's left.
Yeah, and like I love this. Sounds like such an interesting idea of like characters from fiction that could be Victorian superheroes, because I guess tying into what we're about to talk about. I love the idea that it seems like you could go anywhere with it. Is Alan Moore still writing these?
Well, no, this was the last part of it. Like this was of last year. It ended last year.
Okay, but did Alan Moore write all this?
No, wrote all of it.
I'm worried.
Sometimes it got really lazy.
I'm worried
Alan Moore
is. I'm worried that Alan Moore is too weird to have fun with that idea to the degree that he should.
It's pretty disdain. Like he's got a lot of disdain in it. Like that's why I couldn't read most of the latter part. I'm just like the last part is hating on superheroes. Like because all the characters that show up in Tempest are turn of the century forgotten B-list superhero characters from England. Like Electro Girl and like Zam the Immortal and things like that. Like they existed in our world, but they never really got going like as characters. And so he's like, well, I'll just put them in here to be like part of an old league, essentially.
Ironically, since you just brought that up, Alan Moore, because he's working on a new TV show or something, which is amazing to me that he works on anything now because he's so been burned. But he was asked in that interview, and he took the much popularized boomer stance of superhero movies ruin everything.
Yep.
This is only a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember that. I saw that,
and I kind of just rolled my eyes. He's allowed to have his opinion, of course,
but he's also been made filthy rich by it.
Yeah, like as well. Like part of me is like, yeah, are you gonna give that money up though? I was like, no, probably not. Okay then, but I'm also like, isn't this just a guy who's just kind of? It feels like a guy hating the game or hating the, don't hate the player, hate the game or whatever, something like that. It feels like that. Because like for every person who says like superhero movies destroy cinema and superhero movies, they elbow out other genres that could be getting this big blockbuster treatment. I don't know that that's true. I think the simple reason that people go to see these movies is they just like it. They like the genre and it's entertaining.
Well, again,
and that's why they get the money.
Going back to something I like about the MCU is they do other genres with superhero characters.
Yeah.
I was listening to something where they were talking about they were like, this is one of the reasons why we particularly like Iron Man 3, a movie a lot of people don't like.
I'm mixing the bag on it.
I've not seen it, so I need to. I've not seen it.
Do you like Shane Black?
Yeah, I do.
Do you like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
Yeah, I did.
You'll probably like it.
Okay, that's fair. But
you
it
won't
also,
like the twist with the Mandarin?
Well, I kind of already know what that is, but I don't know it that well. But essentially, they were saying what they liked about it is that movie took a risk by getting rid of the powerful thing, and then having Tony Stark rely on his wits to be able to figure it out.
Yes.
And I just watched Back to the Future Part 3, which does kind of the same thing.
Yeah. A lot of people hate that about that. I think it might be the best part about it. There's definitely like an air of he's in the suit like 4 times, and after dozens of upgrades, it runs out of batteries or falls apart. Like you're like, how does that make sense? But like, I think that the idea was like, let's get to the core of who Tony Stark is, and he never needs the suit to be who he is.
Right, because the suit just an extension of himself.
You could never. The problem with that movie is that it exists in a universe. If that movie was by itself, I think it would be much more well liked. Because it has to lead to an Infinity War at some point, he has to have a great suit that does everything. So
hey, we're gonna have an Infinity War here, guys. Let's figure it out.
So but I agree. I think it's not my least favorite.
And going back to the tropes thing, like that's talking about Mission Impossible. That happens in Ghost Protocol, where it's like, well, we've been kicked out of the agency,
disavowed a billion times.
Yeah, and now we've got a bunch of like leftover machinery that doesn't work.
This is the one where he climbs up the
Burj Khalifa.
I remember this one.
But they're all like have all this technology that breaks down. They're like, oh no.
Well, have they seen his face? Let's just go as ourselves.
Yeah, they've never seen us before. And that creates actual tension.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, we're removing some of the cool things, but now the characters just having to be like, oh, I guess we gotta just be like spies and just do our own thing and not get killed. And it's like there's risk.
Yeah.
And that's fun. That's a trope I love is like what you're used to falls apart and now they have to rely on their wits.
Yeah. There's a great part in Iron Man 3 where he I say it's great, but it's really more I just thought it was fun where he has to catch people after they fell out of a plane. Like 12 people fall out of the plane and they're all gonna like hit the water and die. So he has to grab them and they make like a chain of monkeys and he has to like land them into the water gently, and it's kind of cool.
Oh, I like.
And then I don't want to ruin this part for you, but it's
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it soon.
Yeah, the reveal at the end of it is very funny. Is that he's not even in the suit. He did it virtually from a closet, and Don Cheadle walks in like, "Is everything all right?" He's like, "Yeah, I think I got him." And I was like, yeah, and that suit that keeps breaking comes back later in the movie. It's like the prodigal son that keeps returning. It's very cool.
That's fun.
Also, you get like 90 suits at some point. That's the cool thing. The cool thing about that is that it shows his ingenuity, but it also shows that he's like a lunatic after the Avengers because it takes place right after the Avengers happened.
Yeah.
After he goes into the space and he has PTSD and he's just freaked the fuck out all the time, which is something they never follow through anymore.
Well,
It's just one. It's in one movie and then they abandon it. But
Well,
that
that's
would
what
have been
creates like a good character. Or, sorry, I just put ice in my mouth.
Yeah.
That's why you bring someone like Shane Black in to be like, we're going to allow you to do something a little more bending of things just to see what happens. And you get something that is mixed review, but I think a lot of people who like when people take risks are like, hey, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. Because you're right. The only effect is like, I think after Avengers Ultron is that's when you begin Tony Stark becoming the Tony Stark that leads the Civil War.
Yeah, and I think that's when we realized we can't have him do movies anymore. He's got to only be in the team ups because at the end of like Ultron, it doesn't make sense to do an Iron Man 4 or whatever. But every main character got like 3 movies, so I guess it feels right.
Yeah, and then there's more to come slowly but surely.
We've been talking about superheroes. Let's get to our main event.
So yeah, we'll have more to talk about later as things go on.
I'll tie Matt to a chair and make him watch Iron Man 3, and he'll probably be like, "It's pretty good."
Yeah, you don't have to tie me to a chair. I'll be glad to.
I'm tying you to the chair, Matt. It's already been decided.
You have to plot
the straps are over there.
Plot my eyes open like the Ludovico test.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this show quite a bit. The season 2 just ended. We are talking about Amazon's The Boys.
The Boys
are
back in town.
The Boys.
Thin Lizzy, rock music.
Right, we're talking
Led
about
Zeppelin, Stream of Consciousness, William Faulkner. No, like
we're talking about Dem Boys.
We're talking about The Boys season 2.
Created by Eric Kripke, based on the Garth Ennis graphic novel series. And
also Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg have their hands involved in it.
Who also are more involved in Preacher, which is also a Garth Ennis thing that I have not seen, but I hear is pretty good.
Better things about, actually. Because I think Preacher is I've not read Preacher, but I think the consensus is Preacher is probably Garth Ennis' best work.
I know he likes it the most, or he's the most protective of it. So
yeah.
I could get that.
And I think a lot of people who see things like The Boys and other Garth Ennis work as properly too edgy and too like tongue-in-cheek and spiteful, they look at Preacher and say, no, that's kind of on the level. That's where his disdain for certain things works the best.
I've never seen it, so I couldn't say. But
and I think also like in his other work, but we're talking about The Boys, which is clear, I guess, that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg seem to like Garth Ennis as well to keep putting his stuff out there.
Do you want to quickly summarize what we thought about season 1 before we move on?
Yeah, sure. Which of course that's just kind of going to bring us both back and forth. So this is a show that a lot of people have been watching, so I'm glad we can be able to talk about it.
All my friends watch it.
Yeah, because it's not talked about too much, but I think everyone's just kind of like, yeah, we're watching The Boys.
Yeah.
Season 1 was the story of. Let me get all the characters up. I know them all by first name and all.
We got Huey. We got Carl Urban, who plays Bill the Butcher or Billy Butcher.
Billy Butcher.
We've got Mother's Milk, played by Laz Alonso.
Laz Alonso.
We've got Frenchie, whose name I can't ever remember, but he's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Karen Fukuhara plays the girl
Kimiko.
or Kimiko. Anthony Starr.
Tomura Capon is Frenchie.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And then Anthony Starr
plays Homelander.
Is the star.
Chase Crawford plays the Deep.
Aaron Moriarty is
Starlight.
Is Annie in that.
What's his name? Usher plays A-Train.
Jesse T. Usher.
Black Noir is played by, I think, like a stunt guy most of the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about that one.
Boy, do I have a bone to pick about that, but we'll see. I can't remember who Queen Maeve is, but she's also in there. Not to mention we get a couple of other characters.
Dominic McGillicott.
Okay, and there's
And then you get a lot of revolving, like Elizabeth Shue was here.
yeah.
Simon Pegg, Jennifer Esposito.
Yeah. You mean Giancarlo Esposito?
Well, no, Giancarlo Esposito's in it, but Jennifer Esposito was Raynor in the first season.
Oh yeah. She's the
Yeah. And then the hardest working man in Hollywood, Giancarlo Esposito.
He's everywhere, man.
And you know what? He could be everywhere, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, he's good.
He's
So,
one of our secret weapons.
a
as
big
far
cast.
as big cast, and it is
and a big concept, which is the first thing I thought about the show. Is I've read portions of The Boys, and what I haven't read, I've just went to the Wikipedia page and
I have done pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
I've read large portions of it.
My thing,
and then mostly just kind of wrapped it up.
Yeah. My thing about season 1 was I felt, looking at this like first handful of volumes of the comic and what I know about the comic in general, where it goes, is that it, we've used this term before, it cleans out all the gunk. Mm-hmm. It's less cynical, and I think that actually makes the story better. Because there's a point in the story of The Boys where I was like, I don't like any of these people. Not really. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like Huey because he's nice, I guess.
Right.
But like most of the people,
but most of the comic shits on him for being nice.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. It's that alpha bro. Like again, Garth Ennis kind of like, "What's up, bro? Why don't you not be a baby?
Yeah.
And be mean and like carry a
and like the
kill gun."
And I think these changes, I think it's probably because of like
the Mark Millar situation as well.
Yeah, it's like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg probably saw like, we can't just do the same thing. Plus, if you do the same thing, it's not as surprising. But if you do the same thing, I don't know how well it's going to go down. So I think the changes they made are actually for the better. And I remember I was watching after the first episode of season 2, Eric Kripke was on their post show where they talk about it or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he said the thing about the show
Boy Talk with the Boys.
Yeah, something like that. And it was about how the more humanity you have in the show, like The Boys, the safer you are in a way. And usually it's about how vengeance does as much damage to the person who seeks it as the person who does it, or as the person they do it upon or whatever. And I think having someone like that dealing with those themes makes the show better.
Yeah. Well, and also The Boys itself was such a story for a moment. Like it's so Bush era. Like it's so early 2000s. Like it really is. It's kind of like, oh, you haven't seen superheroes like this where they're just hedonistic monsters who are corrupt, and like you get Watchmen, but Watchmen's nuanced and it's about something else.
It's about everything. And
it's also about everything.
Yeah.
The Boys is just like, and what if superheroes existed and mostly they were just dickheads?
Yeah, they're dickheads who work for a corporation.
Yeah.
And everyone's too stupid to realize it's weird that one corporation owns all these superheroes.
And
Should we
kind
be
of is
concerned about
owning
that?
everything else a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you just got like a rascally group of people who are dead set on trying to kill these people with no mercy.
Yeah. And I think I really liked the first season, but the one thing I had is something I might echo later is like, where are we going?
So when I was thinking about how we were going to talk about this, I realized that the way I'm thinking about both of these seasons is character arcs and who gets to shine in this season and who has nothing actually to do.
Mother's milk.
And a few other people. Yeah. I'll contend that a decent amount of the cast gets a lot of filler because it's like we really don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, Queen Maeve, I felt a little bit of that. She does get some nice. Some of them get wrapped up nicer than others.
I'll go ahead and say them now since we're talking about them. So, and also,
but we both liked season 1.
Yeah, I both like season. Season
you should
one's
probably
really
see
solid.
it if you want to.
Season 1's really solid. You get a lot of great. That's why this has so many parts. Except that it's just fun. Like it's also just sometimes just dumb fun. Yeah. And they also have got together a really charming cast that have a lot of great chemistry together.
It has a higher ceiling but a lower floor.
That's that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's got a lower ceiling but a higher floor.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. I would say that the only characters that really get anything to do, and I mean like actually do, is Butcher. Butcher gets more of a play. This is Butcher's season, really.
It is.
This is Homelander's season also.
Yes. But to what end, I question.
Well, I think they realize that he's, at this point, one of their greatest assets as a character because he's the most interesting.
He is.
And a lot of that has to do with Anthony Starr's performance is like, yeah, he's kind of giving it his all. And
He
like,
is.
This is really working.
Same
with Carl Urban.
I agree. At some point, I felt like
Should we go ahead and be like, hey, spoilers maybe a little bit? Or we just kind of be general real
let's
quick?
be general real quick, and then we'll do spoilers. I felt that while he's really good, this feels like a filler season to get to the season that I really want to get to.
You're right. You're right about that. Yeah.
There's the line is
it's still kind of like, why is he still following
anybody?
Yeah. Because he's definitely like by the end of season 1, like kind of a god here, y'all.
Yeah.
Kind of losing my mind.
But I could still see what the moderating influences on him were and what motivates him. And I don't hate the way they keep the leash on him at the end of this season. But that being said, you're kind of stripping away everything that could bind him. And what we want to get to is what we all want to get to, essentially, is when's the mad dog off the leash?
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty thin leash
at this point,
due to like a couple of particular scenes. By the end.
I mean, it's at the end.
I don't really want to show our hand too soon.
No. But at the end, a line out of context, but like, I'll kill everyone is what he says. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Not that I love like the idea of someone killing everyone, but like I love how he gets there, and like I want to know where are we going. They do add some plot twists that are different from the comics, which I think some make it better. Some I'm like, okay, I'll accept that, but you better resolve this somehow.
Out. Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, I'm liking it. I even like what they do with the Deep, and I don't know if this.
Well, he's another character that gets an arc in this.
Yeah.
Is because they also realize he's one of the better parts of it too, just because he's a great comic relief.
He is, and
the Deep gets a lot to do, even if it's not a lot. He gets a lot of an arc. He gets a character arc.
Yeah. And he gets to go to a Scientology church.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
I don't think that's in the comics either.
No. Well, I mean, his character's not as big in the comics at all either.
No, not at all.
If he's even in the comics, I don't recall.
He is.
Well, he's Translucent's the one that's not in the comics.
Yeah,
he's just
so
made up.
Translucent is he's a replacement for a different character.
Right.
I can't remember his name. It's not Lamplighter because Lamplighter is actually in this season.
Yes,
which
Lamplighter
I was like,
is
cool.
in this season, but he's very different from his comic book counterpart.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about it real quick before we get to nitty gritty?
Well, I think those three characters, aside from the newer characters that get introduced, are the ones that have a plot. They have an arc. They have something they need and something they want. And then everybody else gets these moments, but they don't. Even Huey, who's technically our main character, sort of kind of technically our protagonist. His big thing is just sort of like an internal.
I don't want to lose people.
I don't want to lose people, but also he's like, I hate Butcher, and I'm fine with saying it for once. You're a dick, and I don't like you. But it's him eventually coming to realize, you're my friend.
Yeah.
But it's also Butcher. Carl Urban doing a really great job, like being this character that again, this is like the 100th time I say it. His character is the most outlandish personality in a show about superheroes because he's this McCartney super killer man. But this time he gets to be human. You get to see him be vulnerable. You get to see him care, and that's a lot of Carl Urban doing a lot of great acting. In this.
Billy Butcher in the comics, especially the way it all wraps up, he might be worse than Homelander.
He's a villain
in a different way.
he's an anti-hero that kind of becomes a villain, sort of. Yeah. But in this, he
gives Huey superpowers against his will, which that doesn't happen here yet.
Yeah. The Compound V thing in the comics is pretty early on. It's really the only way that these characters are able to match wits against.
Right.
And also the character of
I would argue it makes it more interesting them not having superpowers.
Yeah. I think that if they did that would cut off the stakes really fast.
Yeah. Maybe that's a thing we can get to later.
Yeah.
Because at some point, in order to stop someone like Homelander, it's going to be head to head.
Yeah.
So I don't know how else you're going to be able to do that at some point. But I'm glad that we're not doing that yet.
Yeah. And I think since we're talking about something that it's like the show just ended, we really want to talk about the nitty gritty moments.
Let's get into it.
This is a spoiler episode, kind of. If you're getting this far, I'm hoping that you've watched the series, or you're like, I just want to hear what these guys think about it.
Okay. Let's get into spoilers.
And of course, the other character then that gets, because they introduce her, is Stormfront. And
Nazi Shazam.
I could talk a lot about Stormfront because
We will.
one of my problems was how they would approach her, and I don't know if they did it to my satisfaction, or at least to what I think is responsible.
Yeah, they did it, but they did it real quick and they glossed over it.
They did it so softly that I wonder what that writing room was like.
So we're in spoilers now.
Yeah.
So you wanted them to hit the she's a Nazi a lot harder.
I wanted them to do what Ennis did with it. It's like, because a lot of so again, going back to like The Boys was a retaliation, especially in the Bush era. It was a return to this kind of like Blair's in the prime minister, Bush is in the White House. This is all stupid. We're at war. All the artists and comic book creators were just like, let's just kind of get punk with it and just do irreverent stuff because we're mad. And a lot of Boys is that. Like and
that it reminds me of the Paul Greengrass version of Watchmen, where he wanted to set it in like the Bush era and like Iraq, and I was like, nah, it's not the same.
That would be a weird take.
Yeah, not weirder than Terry Gilliam's, where it's all just in a comic book at the end.
Yeah.
So what's the point of even watching it?
Or whichever one has the terrorist team at the Statue of Liberty, and they show up, and it's like, it's the goddamn Watchmen. This is one of my favorite lines in a comic, in a script. It's the goddamn Watchmen.
Yeah. But I agree that it's easier to do something like this than that.
Yeah, because now we're in an era where there are, Nazi street gangs and and things like that. So my problem was introducing Stormfront is something you have to do. Because one, what's her name? Amy Chase?
Yes, I think that is her name.
I hope people Aya Cash.
Yeah.
I hope people give her the respect she needs because she did such a wonderful job in this performance. And I know it had to be nerve-wracking for her to play a character like this because audiences are stupid and will assume bad things about you because of the characters you play.
Joffrey Breath.
Yeah, and I'm hoping this doesn't affect Aya Cash at all.
I don't think it will. She's still alive at the end.
Yeah, she's still alive at the end a little bit. Well, I've seen the pictures of what she's going to look like in prosthetics afterwards. I think they're showing like what she's going to look like after this. Keeping it subtle at the beginning to hide the mystery is fine, but by the time it's like, yeah, I was hanging out with like the Nazi high command and was married to, Vought and all that, and she's still just like, oh, I love my Ubermensch, but she's not making like outlandish anti-Semitic and like horrible like it feels
devil's advocate
so here. It feels so weak to be like, we have a Nazi who's not a Nazi. Like and it's like, again, I don't need this character running around screaming racial slurs because that's stupid and offensive, but I need to believe this character is serious. And
she wants this race war.
Yes. And she's like grooming Homelander to be the Ubermensch, to be the Aryan ideal, because that's why she loves him and is obsessed with him. It's like, you're everything we ever wanted. But either you
She's not explicit enough about that.
Yeah.
You could easily interpret the scenes where they have their like romantic parts or whatever to just be that she likes him. She never explicitly says, you are like our white savior. She just kind of says like, I see you leading an army of superheroes. She doesn't specify that it's like for white people.
She does say explicitly like you're what we dreamed of. Like you're the ideal.
But she doesn't say like what is the like. You see what I mean? Like the fact that it's this vague and that we're kind of interpreting stuff into it. You could be a tad more overt.
Yeah,
but leave the subversive parts for when they're in public.
Yeah,
like. They radicalize a guy on the internet. This is one I really liked.
Yeah.
They radicalize a guy on the internet
who kills
a I don't know, a Somalian guy or a Middle Eastern looking guy, and because he suspects that he is a super terrorist.
He's a super villain as Homelander wants them to be called, and he's just I love that bit where he's just like, we're calling them supervillains.
Because the reason and that's actually very clever because the reason he wants that is because you call him a supervillain, you dehumanize it, take it away from what it actually is or whatever. But like, because he thinks he saw something in the guy's eyes and then he shoots him and kills him.
Right.
And then like when they show up and do that, they show up and it's almost too on the nose, but I let it go because they were like, no one condones what happened at that diner.
Right.
We absolutely condemn violence, like thoughts and prayers or whatever. Like, but we need more Compound V. We need more soups. And he goes, we need to know if these terrorists are coming over our border. Like, That's the stuff that I liked because that's the stuff that I believe because I've seen enough of that in real life.
Yeah, there's
an
good
angry kid
people on both sides. Yeah, it's that thing.
Yeah, and an angry kid getting radicalized on the internet is perhaps the most prescient thing I've ever seen from this show. It's probably the thing that I liked as far as the political stuff, the stuff that I liked the most.
And something that I've noticed brought up in like alt-right circles and things is they really like this character of Homelander, of not Homelander, but of Stormfront.
Sure they do.
It has parallel things that are just like, oh, she's our waifu, like this character, and it's just like I understand guys like Krepke, Goldberg, and Rogan just being like, we have to be careful with this character because if we do it wrong, then all the people watching our show who have like alt-right sympathies will start seeing them as a character they like. But at the same time, like, we have to make her a threat.
That's where I think they do a good job at it. Because they make her kill a bunch of Korean people in an apartment building.
Yeah, well, a bunch of black people, too.
Yeah, she just blows up.
But at the same time, it's like they don't make her, and it's probably just because Aya Cash is so charming and is a really good actress and is just really charismatic.
She represents the savvy alt-righter now. She knows how to use social media, whereas Homelander is not. First of all, Homelander, I don't know how political he even is.
That's something that I was just thinking about was like, you never get an idea of what his end goal is other than just, you never hear him just like, I'm just using this to get what I want. I don't care about your politics.
He just wants people to like him.
Right.
To love him. And that's the part where I was like, I wanted to see him get radicalized just enough to make it make sense.
Or I want him to just outright be like, this is stupid.
I don't care about this.
Yeah.
I don't care about white people.
Yeah.
I care about super people. Like, that's the people that I like.
See, that's that. Yeah. It's like, I don't care
we
about
transcend even higher than this.
I don't care about Nazis or anything like that. I'm more powerful than all of you.
Yeah. I beat up Nazis in my last movie or whatever that I did. Like, that would have been interesting. I don't hate where they leave it off and stuff. In fact, even when he comes down covered, first of all, that scene with him in the house with the guards, I was like, if you're a guard, you need to think on your feet when he comes like, what are you doing here? Where's my son? You'd be like, Butcher kidnapped him. We got to go after him now. Let's go. Like, you need to like.
Yeah, you need to improvise instead of be like, because you're going to get sliced in half. Yeah. As they all did.
Which is he does. When he comes out covered in blood, I was like, oh, it's that scene from the first trailer where he hovers down and is out of focus. And then you see him, he's covered in blood.
Because the show tricks you a few times. The trailer tricks you a few times. Because you talked about this before, I think, with the.
When he lasers the crowd.
Yeah. And you think like, oh, that's the snap. That's like the season finale snapping moment. It's like, no, it's just
I knew it wasn't when it happened. It would have been cool, but like it does show his mental state. But if we need to get there at some point, and this is what I've always said: is the show has done a good job / bad job of pulling its punches about superpowers, a superpowered fight. Because at some point, in order to stop this guy, he's going to go on a Man of Steel times 1,000 rampage.
Right.
But instead of Superman trying to stop Zod, it's just. There is no Superman. Yeah, it's just Zod.
It's just Zodding. It's just, because the only person that has any substantial power that comes close is like, is Stormfront does.
Yeah.
And they're able to beat Stormfront
by kicking the shit out of her.
Yeah, which is it's a scene. That's a scene. I don't know how I feel about it. It feels like it was a little like a little reaching because for one thing, what's Maeve doing there? How does she know how to get there? Because
she can't fly.
That's another thing. I don't know what Maeve's powers are.
She's just strong and durable.
Yeah.
She's like Wonder Woman.
Woman.
But Wonder Woman can fly in different iterations of her continuity. But like in the movies, Wonder Woman can't fly.
No.
But Zack Snyder said on Vero, I was like, was Wonder Woman going to fly in your 5-story Justice League arc? And he goes, not yet. So I was like, what? But I definitely want, and also like the fight itself was kind of not that impressive.
Well, it was just a beatdown.
It's just punching in the face, but I want to see some superpowers.
Yeah, you want to see people just like boom, and then there's a crater. And
or something. And just like, and I know they're probably like they have a limited budget, so they're saving it. But also, it's Amazon, and Jeff Bezos is worth $100,000 bajillion dollars.
He can just
give him some more budget.
He can open up like a Wario bag of gold and just drop it. Like, here's one.
Or it could be that they're sort of saving it for like when the stuff all goes off the chain.
Because like you're saying, if they go in on like the only thing they can do next season is like Butcher freaks out and takes Compound V and becomes like
anti-Homelander.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Then you'll get that fight. Do you want to talk about some more of the Seven to wrap that up before we talk about the boys?
I want to talk one more thing about the Nazi Homelander Stormfront stuff.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I thought was really good. I think at least it's a really good line, and it describes how the alt-right acts today, which is people agree with what I say. They just don't like the word Nazi. When I heard that, I was like, that's very good. And it's very true.
That explains a little bit why she would not be like even in private, be like, the Jews, is because she's had almost 100 years to hone herself, much like white supremacy has had 100 years since the fall of the Reich to hone it, to take off the hood and wear suits and ties, David Duke itself. Yeah. So maybe even she, this is the show subtly that is like, well, I'm not going to even say it in private anymore because if I lay too much in my hand, we're exposed. Yeah. But as long as I can take the talking points and rearrange them and still make an audience work, you can see it all happening. That's savvy writing in this. It's just, I think, for my own taste, as somebody who...
It does that, and then they have another heavy-handed thing happen right after it. And you're like, you went too far. Yeah. Or in some cases, you don't go far enough. Right. It's uneven.
I want her... I want her to reveal herself in such a way, which it happens, but that reveal to the public needs to be more... To expose this new rhetoric for what it is, which is just
I think in Eric
Einstein just the desire to be a death squad.
I think that in Eric Kripke, the devil's advocate this a little bit. I think the way he portrays her when the public finds out about she's 120 years old and she was alive when she was dating Nazis and stuff. She's fucked up. And there's the guy who's like, there's the YouTuber who has a Twitch streamer who's like, Nazis are bad. Whatever. Like, I think the way he portrays how the public would react to it is accurate.
Yeah.
For the most part.
It's not.
I like to think more people would be like, oh, she's a Nazi. Fuck that. But also, as soon as it happens, you stupid slut, this stuff is all doctored, or whatever she says to Starlight. Like, these are just Photoshop or whatever. Fake news, as if to say it. But, like, I agree with you. I do think that he got the realism of it right. I think what I would like to have seen them lean into more is, I heard this on one of the, speaking of Twitch streamers, I subscribe to a Twitch streamer called Destiny, who debates alt-righters, and he's one of the best people I've seen it. A lot of people say that listening to his debates de-radicalized them,
which is awesome.
And that's what he does. And he's not.
I've heard the same from other people I follow.
He's not perfect, and he's very critical of like some of the political people that I admire or whatever. But as far as like a leftist who does God's work, like that's the big thing you got to be doing right now. And he says, I heard him say in a debate, if your rhetoric is indistinguishable from that of a Nazi's, but you just don't like the word Nazi, you have a brand. What you're talking about is branding, not ideology.
Yeah, it's branding. Or whatever. It's just readjusting to fit a new audience.
I've heard him debate people who like, we should have a white ethno state, and he goes, how do you define whiteness? And he goes, I don't know, just by looking at him. He's like, I'm 50% Cuban. Do I look white? He looks white, just for everyone. Or I was like, well, you know, like people, you know, like minorities and people who aren't white, you know, tend to, you know, like they don't have American values. Like, what are American values? Oh, limited government, you know, Second Amendment. Oh, so you just mean conservative politics? So why don't you just have a state based around your conservative politics? Like, oh, well, that sounds like you'd be totalitarian. He's like, indeed. Indeed.
Yeah.
It's like, I really think the show came really close to nailing some of these ideas. You know, you hear people like, well, black people have smaller IQs, like based on like, he's like, based on what? He's like, based on like testing. He's like, all right, well, let's say if you believe that's true.
It's the horrible shadow of things like the bell curve.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, I've read Charles Murray and stuff. And then they go like, I was like, well, if you want a ethno state of white people, but why don't you just get rid of all the stupid people? Why don't you have an IQ state? Like, he's just asking these questions like,
why don't you have a Mensa state?
Yeah, like
which I've met plenty of dickhead Mensa people.
Nothing you have leads you to the outcome of it should be a white European ethno state.
Right.
And he goes,
and I mean, we're getting in the weeds of a great issue.
Exactly. I'm for anyone who's never seen me in real life, just heard my voice. I'm Iranian. I'm on my dad's side. He was the first person on his family to live in America, but he was born in Iran. So I'm the first generation of his family to be born here. And I look Iranian. I have olive skin. I have dark black hair. Iranians are considered more Caucasian than things like
Arabic people, because technically you're Persian.
Yeah, so people and I've heard Richard Spencer talk about it in interviews with David Pakman, where David Pakman grills him on it, and he goes, "Would Iranian people be considered white?" He's like, actually, yes, they would. These people's ideology are so fragile that at the slightest touch, you can show how many cracks there are in it. I wish the show had done a little more of that. I wish that, because they imply that she's racist. They imply it hard, like with A-Train. A-Train's like, "Do you have a problem with me?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh no, sweetie." He's like,
and there's that line she has about Giancarlo Esposito's character where she says he's very crafty for
one of his kind.
One of his
yeah,
kind.
and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, and it's gross.
And even Giancarlo Esposito is. There's a part where he's at
it's a good line.
He's at the part of Church of Scientology where he's like, and he goes, and he's like, "Well, what's your problem with Stormfront?" He was like, "My sociometrics team has done a lot of research, and I think you know exactly what my problem is with Stormfront." He's like, he knows who she is.
And he also has this great line that's been brought up where he talks. I don't remember who he's talking to, but
he's talking to Billy Butcher.
Yeah,
about the luxury of a white man.
Yeah, he's like, I can't go and throw a fit about that. That's a luxury.
A white man's luxury.
A white man's luxury.
Yeah, fantastic.
And, because he's a heavy hitter. And I think a lot of what we're talking about now that I'm thinking about it, and I think a lot of it is just me as somebody who is very reactionary to fascist politics, somebody who, because my grazing was in a lot of those cultures. I was in internet culture growing up as a kid, and I watched a lot of these communities.
The fascists were the first people
on the internet
to start making memes and shit. Like,
but before that, like, back on like the early Chanboard eras, like 2000, 2003 and on, it was very...
Or as I call the Dark Ages.
The other thing, before the Dark Ages.
Before the Empire.
Before the Empire, where it was just sort of just
forbid.
Like chaotic humor based entirely on in-group concepts before the word meme got associated with it. It's eventually all those groups, as they shut down Stormfront, which is what gets her name. They shut down the Richard Black, I can't remember his name. His website Stormfront got shut down. A bunch of other sites got shut down, and they all migrated into new groups and used their culture to expand.
Yeah.
That's the history of white supremacy, is like in the late 80s and early 90s.
Now they're just on the Breitbart Reddit forum. Or that's where they pop.
Or they're on
the Daily Caller.
Or they're part of that 1% of 1% that's on Twitter, yet still gets so much focus because of the algorithm. Yeah. Or on YouTube. Or thankfully, like QAnon's getting taken off Facebook now. Yeah. A little too late.
And there's enough, and I'm happy enough to know that, like, there was a while where it seemed like on a place like YouTube, the alt-light side of these things are getting a lot of play. And now I'm happy to see that, like, a lot of the arguments are getting taken down, largely in part because I always say it, like, in it's a line from Hellboy or whatever, and he goes, "In the absence of light, darkness prevails." You can't cede the stage to these people. The debates, as childish as they seem, they matter. And I've seen a lot of people like, "Oh, you can't. I would never like platform someone like this." Taking their ideas down is the first way to have people who are in the middle and are I call them NTFGs, not too far gone yet. That's how you get them back. Right. Is by debating those people. And channels like David Pakman or Kyle Kalinske or the Majority Report, they're really important because they serve a very big part of de-radicalizing people.
And other people like someone I like who's Innuendo Studios does a lot of great videos.
Creationist Cat, all those guys.
I would even say like ContraPoints. She's great.
She's great.
But a lot of these people get controversies in their groups. That's my ignorance in that regard.
Oh no,
I'm not that much of a hard leftist.
Lefty violence is a real thing. Yeah. But like, I say violence. I mean like they'll shit talk each other or whatever. Right. But like,
and sometimes you just get trolls and shit talkers and
I've seen enough change my mind Steven Crowder memes to be like you got to get in the comment sections and you got to fight back.
Yeah.
In the mud.
Because I only recently found out that meme, changed my mind is Steven Crowder. I'm like, ew, I don't want to see those again.
And the ironic
because that's just normalizing him being around.
The irony of the change my mind meme is that everyone who posts it will never change their mind about the thing they're posting it about. Ironically, like Steven Crowder when he does those debates.
The joke is the joke is that I'm putting it to be outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I don't like
have
cream
no interest
corn.
in-
Change my mind. And it's like
Korn is the best metal band of all time. You can't
Change my
and
mind.
a lot of people will just straight up say you can't change my mind. And I'm like by the very way you present this is saying you are not open to the discussion and you will not have your mind changed.
Right.
I despise that meme, even if it is funny on occasion.
Right. But the joke is literally that you won't change my mind.
And
That's the irony.
ironically, when Stormfront tells Homelander you don't need an army, you need about 3 million angry fuckers or whatever, and she's making memes on the internet.
Yep.
That's
what's happening.
It's very clever. They come really
yeah.
close to nailing it a lot of times, and they miss it maybe once or twice.
But us talking about it now makes me realize a little bit more that it's like they're dealing.
He's not trying to show overt fascist. He's trying to show how a fascist operates now.
Yeah.
And how they would if they were a
the keyboard
superhero.
culture warriors that are trying to win hearts and minds using things like populism and like because her whole deal starts off as like the system's stupid corporate nonsense. This is all a charade. I want to show you the real meat and potatoes of it, and that's how they get you.
Yeah.
It's like you're tired of the system, aren't you?
Yeah.
And eventually you go down the line far enough where it's like, well, our system works.
She steals populist language,
Yep.
much in the way someone like Tucker Carlson does.
Yeah.
Or even
Glenn Beck did.
Or even like, middle of the road dickheads like Dave Rubin or Tim Pool start with this kind of a central premise that you would agree with. And then they just kind of slowly tilt you one way, and then before you know it, you're sharing Pepe the Frog memes.
Yeah,
or whatever.
it's
or you're watching Milo Yiannopoulos videos,
Right.
Or you're doing any number of.
or you're in Charlottesville,
Yeah.
And I listened to this one podcast title. I'll stop after this. We
Yeah.
could cut some of this. I don't know. Actually, I think this is a really great discussion.
I do too, but I also forget we have an intro to cut, so I'll cut that too. We'll probably be all right.
We'll put some things around. Where they talked about the thing is like, and I won't talk about long because we're in the middle of an election year, but just like the whole thing with Trump is that he's not a true believer in what a lot of these people think. They're in fact annoyed.
Yeah.
They're annoyed with him because he's like, you're not giving us enough power. But what he's created is a loaded gun that he's just sitting on a table. And
The
just
next
like,
person
and the next person, like a Tom Cotton or something, would be like, well, I know how to use this.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what they're getting at in this is that idea. And I understand why Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen and all them are just like, we got to be careful with this character because it's very possible that it'll get away from us.
And people will like her
people
for the
will
wrong
like him
reasons.
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And that kind of happened a little bit. And so they're like, you have to make her both ridiculous.
What's the worst thing you saw? Just out of curiosity. Like you saw people like on a 4chan thing who were like,
Well, they were just like,
this should be my girlfriend.
yeah, they were just mostly just like, oh, my Nazi GF, it's that whole like weird, that infantilizing culture they create
Pretty
for
sure
themselves.
women by a staggering margin are far less likely to embrace fascist politics than men.
Well, it's the great,
Especially young women.
the great news article about alt-right women are sick of how alt-right men treat them. And it's like, well, sorry.
I'm not
they
saying that
hate you.
I'm not saying you deserve it if you stick around, but
Yeah, but they hate you. Like that's the end of the
go to a Proud Boys rally. See how many women are there.
yeah.
Not many.
See how many people. See how many.
And by the way, you should want Starlight to be your girlfriend because she's nice.
Yeah,
and she's sweet,
nice and she sticks to the truth.
and she'll go bowling with you.
Yeah.
So like it's a much cooler girlfriend.
She will put up with the fact that you really like Billy Joel because there's nothing wrong with really like Billy Joel.
I disagree with that. I don't like Billy Joel. His music's too happy too often. But I'll digress.
the man who wrote Piano Man.
Let's
Too
get
Happy.
back to let's get back to superhero stuff.
So that's kind of she's a big part of this season. She's kind of one of the arch villains of this season.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they'll do after this. She's not dead by the end because she does get brutally fucked up.
Yeah. Which shows you, like, I thought she was pretty in the comics. Stormfront is like second in power. First of all, Stormfront's a man, but he's only
Stormfront's a man and more obviously a Nazi.
Yeah, and he's only like second in power to Homelander. That kid fucks her up pretty bad.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder how strong is Homelander, who's had the time to hone those powers. It really puts the fear of God in you a little bit about like how strong he could be.
And how strong his genetics are.
Yeah.
Also. If that's what's really going on.
Yeah.
Like if that's really his child,
Because in the comics, Vought took created Homelander from some of Stormfront's DNA is a thing that happened. And he's like he's Stormfront 2.0 in a way, without lightning powers.
Yeah, without lightning powers and apolitical mostly.
Yeah.
You know, because by the end he's like skull fucking the vice president's head. Like, like he's just like, I don't care anymore. Because he loses his mind, essentially. Which is
maybe not entirely his fault, which brings me to
we'll talk about Black Noir
in a second.
Because we know pretty much now that the course has been corrected as far as where it's going.
Maybe. Or I mean, and I'm okay with them mixing this up.
Right. Well, one plot is that the whole thing of like all the evil deeds that comic Homelander did were not him and were made to gaslight him into
Black
insanity.
Noir who has gone insane and did those because Black Noir is a clone of spoiler alert. We're in spoilers anyway. Yeah. But
spoiler for a comic that's been
out for forever.
For a
that's
long time.
Not going to be in this probably. But like, he is a clone of Homelander, tasked with killing Homelander should he ever get out of control, and being so close to Homelander yet unable to kill him drove him insane.
He's what is it called? A something trigger.
I can't remember.
But you know what I mean. Like you're a failsafe. Yeah, he's a failsafe to keep Homelander intact.
And he basically went on murders and child murders and was eating people and all
he's
sorts
eating
of
babies
stuff.
and everything. But Homelander
which,
eventually began to believe it was him,
and that he was having dissociative identity disorder, which he wasn't. He was right. So maybe that could have been avoided. Is kind of a thing that's up in the air in the comics. Did Black Noir inadvertently cause this so he could kill Homelander, which he does, by the way.
Yeah.
He's way more
powerful than Homelander. I mean, he's dragging like what's left of him out of the White House by the end of it.
Yeah, and then Billy Butcher kills him, which feels like it should be impossible.
Yeah. But, well, I think when he flies out, the whole army's there and just lays waste to him until there's barely anything left, and he's just like gonna crowbar your head open.
Yeah.
It's very graphic. Like that comic is super violent. That's part of why you're watching it. You're reading it. Yeah. It's just for the gore.
I'm there for the violence. Yeah. I just wish the violence was presented in a way that was more aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. Not because it's too gory, but because every time Homelander kills someone, he just like just quick laser eyes. And like, I want to see a fight because this is about superheroes. Right. And I think we'll get there eventually, but I'm going to constantly deduct a star from my review until you give me that, baby. But, yeah, Black Noir is revealed. It's not revealed, but like you
don't know who he is.
You see his face, and he's got scars on his face.
Right. He almost looks a little bit like Deadpool. Like he's got that Deadpool like.
Even his outfit is kind of Deadpoolish, except he's black.
Right. He doesn't talk.
But I'm kind of curious: are the scars from the opening where he kills the terrorist and comes back and he gets exploded? And that's why he's got burn scars? Or is it because of something due to his creation and it's revealed that he has a nut allergy? And I was like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of him being a ruthless killing machine.
I feel like the nut allergy thing was like an improv sort of deal. I read somewhere.
But it said that he's in a vegetative state now. And I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah, he needs to be more of a threat instead of a joke.
Yeah.
Unless they're just like, we don't want to do that with this character.
I know
but
that.
But until then, he's the only other character that's like...
But you have a mystery with him. Preserve that. And they still kind of are.
They do. They haven't shown what he is yet.
Yeah, but I feel like what they're probably going to do is just make him just a brainwashed killer who they can use, who Giancarlo Esposito can just command at will.
Right.
Which is less interesting.
It's his, like, the mountain. Like, it's
pretty
just
much.
Like, oh, he'll do whatever I want him to do, which is what he does. He's like, oh, he's my fail-safe.
Yeah, but you have an opportunity to at least do some really killer action sequences with that dude. But it just rubbed me the wrong way. I like that Queen Maeve can kick his ass, kind of, maybe, or whatever.
A little bit.
Because
again, she's kind of vague in terms of her power, but
yeah, they all are to a degree. The strongest person we've seen is that 10-year-old boy so far.
Yeah, who can even Homelander's like, oh, he can kill me, can he?
Maybe, and that could be a cool development where he grows up and over the course we do a flash forward 6 years and he comes as like a teenager, Invincible style, and fights Homelander.
Yeah, he's like
That'd
Invincible,
be cool.
Which they're doing a cartoon of Invincible.
They are. I thought they were doing like a movie.
No, it's an animated series.
Oh.
It's an animated film. It's already had the first trailer out, I think. I've not seen it, but
I'll watch that.
It's got a cast. I'll look it up.
I've only read the first 2 volumes of Invincible, but I quite enjoy. I think it's better than The Walking Dead in a lot of ways.
I think a lot of people agree with that.
Robert Kirkman's finest hour, in my opinion. But I just wanted Black Noir to. I want them to just kind of be. I'm okay with them making changes. Just be careful and do something cool and interesting.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the thing that I think we wanted to talk about, which was like characters and character arcs and things that seem to be lacking.
Because the Deep gets his whole thing where he's still just kind of hapless and stuck in Ohio and all that, but he comes across this. Essentially, it's Scientology. It's like Nexus. It's this weird cult sort of deal, and everybody knows it is.
What's up with the Fresca?
Fresca. I don't know why they were. I was like,
can you even get a Fresca anymore?
You can get a Fresca, but I was just kind of
Where?
like,
I've never
places?
seen one. Tell me where these places are, Matt.
oh, I'm probably not here. I mean, we don't do Fresca. I've not. Is that a joke related to something that I don't get?
I don't know.
I always felt it was a joke related to something with like.
Because they don't drink, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, it's always like Fresca, and I'm like, is there some sexual joke with this? Is this something about?
Is this a meme?
Yeah,
Are we old now? Are we out of the hip lingo?
Oh, based Fresca, based on what? You know, like I don't know what I don't. Either way, that's the ongoing joke with it. Unless there's something about Scientology and Sprite, I don't get.
And he's lured into this thing by a other superhero who is like an Archer-based character, like a Green Arrow or
kind of a
Hawkeye.
Green Arrow. He's in the comic very briefly.
Yeah.
I think, but
And then he is labeled a suppressive person and then asked to leave the Church of Scientology. I mean, the new Dawn Order or whatever the fuck it's called. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I actually liked the Deep having a kind of character arc where he has to confront some ugly parts about himself, and then it just kind of goes nowhere.
It kind of goes
maybe?
nowhere except for that one part where they corner them on the island and he comes in with the whale.
Yeah,
and
like
he's
why?
he's like,
How did he know that? And he's obviously trying to get back into the Seven.
I think they even said like, how did he know we'd be there? And I think it's just like the guy who runs it is like clearly has deep pockets. Like he's actually like somebody who has some influence.
He's the David Miscavige.
Yeah, he's the David
head of
Miscavige
church. Yeah.
or that one creep who led Nexium or whatever, whose name I can't remember. And they were like, he probably knew something and was like, now's your time to shine. And instead, it tragically kills another beautiful aquatic animal.
Yeah, it's kind of cool though.
Yeah,
for a while.
Like, was it Huey or Butcher just drives through
It's
that whale?
Butcher.
Yeah, he's just like, all right, fuck it, and just goes through.
Because
This
someone else
whale.
is driving, then Butcher like pushes them over and does it anyway. Like, we're not stopping, baby. And then Huey is like traumatized.
Yeah,
poor Huey.
Poor Huey is just covered in guts. He continues to be very delightful in all this. Good old.
He's good. I feel like he just gets a little aimless now.
That's something I thought, and because of that, so does Starlight, because their relationship is connected. So there's a lot of like, you get the whole "I don't want to see you again" or "you don't know what you want" and all that, and I'm like. This felt a lot more strong in the first season.
They do that one too many times.
Yeah,
I think.
And also the fact that she's still alive is kind of weird because at this point she's been such a clearly a problem for the Seven.
Yeah,
and Homelander
the part
knows
where
it.
Homelander puts her in the elevator, like he puts his hand like right under her rib cage,
and he's just like
he's like, I'm gonna go through here in a second, and like that should be like a warning sign for her, like you gotta get a move on and get out of there or whatever.
But by the end, after the Stormfront thing, it's like, in order to make sure everything goes well, you all have to come together and be like, well, I got these two with me. So it's a political move. He's like, I hate both of you now, but...
Does he like being liked more than he hates the people that wrong him or something?
In the end is... And Mr. What's his name? I can't remember his character's name. Is Giancarlo Esposito's character's name?
Mr. Eggers.
Mr. Edgar.
Yeah.
Has clearly has such power that it's like he's. I can't wait to know more about him because he's afraid of nothing.
Yeah, I want to know where that's going because I don't ever get the insinuation that Homelander would kill him.
Yeah.
But
why?
But Elizabeth Shue was genuinely afraid of him. Maybe Black Noir is like a clone of him because they're both like olive skinned or black skinned, and it could just be that Black Noir has scars. But that would be an interesting development. I made a clone of me that I could just launch on anyone.
Well, why
wouldn't you make him as strong as Homelander?
There have also like I've heard speculation. It's like maybe he's Vought, maybe he's like cosmetic Vought or something.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. That's fine. But no, I definitely feel like that would be cool. But I don't know. But I love him in that story. How's Homelander gonna react when he realizes that he made a deal with Billy Butcher?
Yeah,
that's gonna be hard. Like I don't know how much fear you can put in Homelander anymore. He seems. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we want to talk about.
Because there's a scene clearly at the very end where he's on that building just jerking off, and it's just like,
didn't like it.
It's like, no one can stop me. He's free. He's liberated. And
Is he, or is he just trying to convince himself? Is what I kind of read.
well, there's the conflict. Is like you said, next season should be the Homelander you want, which is like,
or we're getting, or at least like it's gonna be the finale of that season. Is he finally is just like fuck it and just like
murders everybody.
I'm not like. What does he want? Does he want to be? I mean, does he love the celebrity? Because it seems like he's constantly.
I think you've
annoyed.
got it. I think you've got it though. Is he wants love? Like he wants to be loved. Like in the first season, you know, he thinks he's getting that from Elizabeth Shue until it realizes he's being played,
Thank you.
and then clearly lets her go because he's like, well, I have a son now, essentially.
I liked that.
And then when he finally, because it's clear that he has such deep, abiding love and desire to see his son become him, because that's the only thing that seems to matter to him.
Or
So
even
he's like,
become-
he's found a purpose.
It's almost better than him. Like because
Yeah.
like he tells. This is the one part of I was like I didn't expect that from him when he was like talking to Billy's wife. What's her name?
Becca.
Becca. And he's like,
Becca.
yeah, Becca.
Becca.
He's like, how do you think he's gonna react when he realizes you've lied to him his whole life? And I was like, he's absolutely right. You'd think she would have done something about that earlier when he's smart enough to understand, because that is his affection for his son is really good, and I almost wanted to see like him starting to corrupt him, but he's very mostly genteel with him. He
Yeah.
pushes him off the roof because he wants him to fly.
Right. But he's also has this stunted idea of fatherhood.
Yeah.
Because he's not like he
And
never had that.
and he never had a father.
Right. He has a fictionalized like, hey there, son, kind of idea things,
Yeah.
but he's also like an unstable monster who's trying to be, you know, Mr. Cleaver.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, kid, let's go play some ball, I guess. Like he's trying his best, but he also it's two wild animals playing with
It's
each other.
it's almost like if it was just him and his son, he might be better. Like
Yeah.
it might make Homelander a better
person. Because
Stormfront
everything
tries to immediately radicalize him. There are people that hate us because of the color of our skin. Said
yeah.
no white person ever.
yeah.
But whatever.
Because him being where he is, where it's just like by the end of the, you know, big spoiler, he goes with Butcher.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know the difference. Like I know there's something wrong about that, and that
I really like that.
yeah,
We'll get
that
to
breaks
in a
him.
second.
That breaks him because it's his only motivation right now. And I like that it's vague enough because from an actor's standpoint, I'm like, Anthony Starr playing Homelander has something he wants that is so specific to everything he does, but it's not so clear to the story. And I can see him playing that. I can see him being like what he already knows what Homelander wants.
I think he's
Homelander just doesn't know how to verbalize it.
Yeah.
But he can get close enough to being like, I have something that is literally connected to me, and that is my child.
I think Homelander is eventually going to realize that no amount of love will fill the void. You can see how contemptuous his relationship was with Stormfront.
Yeah.
To the point that we're like, I don't know how long that even
Like
would
she
have lasted.
idolized him and like gave him obviously, you know, sexual gratification.
That's why though, because
he's sick of being idolized.
no, but I think it's almost the opposite. That's when they got closer. Was when she talked about how she saw him as this messiah. He's like, oh, really? Like he almost wanted to like size himself up like the Deep or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I think that was another temporary gratification, but I don't think it would have satisfied him. And I think
Well, I think he also sees what Stormfront sees that is right, which is the whole mercantilism and consumerist charade that Vought does is fake. It's all a script. And he's like, they're just believing a script. They don't believe in me.
yeah,
They don't believe that I am a god.
That'd be great
and
if they
need
leaned
to
into that.
believe I'm a god. And she's like, yeah, you are a god as long as you're a god from my points
Yeah.
of view. And he's like, well, all right, you betrayed me as well. Like also you disappoint me.
Yeah.
Everyone
Oh, yeah,
has
we
an
didn't even-
agenda.
We glossed over the part where he burns down his trailer because she takes too long.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bad boyfriend.
Yeah. No, it was his trailer, but like he was just like, you can see like being lied to even once just hurts him a lot because he doesn't trust anyone easily. And when he does trust him, like he gets hurt. It probably reminds him of Elizabeth Shue. I think the fact that
because everybody wants things from him, but they don't want him. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, they want a selfie, but they don't want to like. I think that's you'd have to lean into that to where like nobody really likes him. Not they like the idea of him. They like the selfies or whatever, but like, and that's gonna cause him to be like fall into deep despair, and then he's gonna snap and be like, well, if this world doesn't love me, then I won't love the world, and
Right.
just like,
or I'll make them love me through force.
yeah. So there's definitely a lot of cool stuff with him. Let's talk about Butcher and his character arc, which he almost negates because it implies that he thought about killing the kid. Because at first I thought it was so refreshing. And not because I need everyone to be good. I like bad characters as much as anyone. But when he was like, take the kid, I made a deal and I was going to sell you out and I would have sold you out. He needs to grow up away from me because I'll put what's in me, what my dad put in me, I'll put into him.
It's the opposite of Homelander's
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Where
a lot
like,
of
I want
fatherhood
me
stuff.
in you. I want part of me to be with you. And Butcher's like, I'm trash, dude. You do not want to be involved with me. But the least I could do is protect you and save you.
Right.
And that's sort of him slowly becoming less selfish throughout this.
That's a big change from the
that's this
comics.
season.
Butcher in the comics would never say anything.
He's
like
almost as much of a wild animal as anybody. But in this, it's Urban just really being like you could see all the times when he's having his like, oh, I can't kind of point of view. He's almost putting it on. Like he's like, I got to show a face for the boys.
Yeah.
But even he's not really sincere about it anymore. He's like, now there's stakes in my life. Like Becca's alive. Like there's a child involved. Like I could show up and be like, you all been waiting for me, right? But you could see something behind that. Is like, they need me to be Butcher, but I'm also having to be Billy. I'm also having to be William. Like I'm also having to be the person I was now that I forgot about. Yeah. And you see him struggling between those two things.
I don't know how he could ever, because at the end he kills all the members of the boys. In
the comic
gets them murdered or something like that because he needs them out of the way because he wants to kill everyone who has Compound V in their system, or whatever.
Because that's also one of the things is a lot of the Huey plot line in this about Huey being like,
is he hates Butcher.
Yeah.
The part where he punched him in the face, I kind of felt really gratifying. It's like, because
Butcher's like this toxic masculine, like alpha male, and he's like, I'm sick of you treating me this way. I've done a lot for you people.
Yeah, he has.
Like,
he's got a point.
I've almost died multiple times. Yeah. Like
and then Butcher punches him in the face real hard.
Yeah.
Which I felt like, yeah, he has been trying to get his wife back. You don't want to get in the way of that train. Right. He needs.
We know this about this.
But then after that, when Huey punches him, and at first, like, he punches him in a way, and he was like, it didn't even really hurt, but it just kind of hurt my feeling. like Carl Urban, the way he plays it was really interesting. And then after the wife dies, and she's like, please don't blame him. Like, you see that look, and he grabs the crowbar, and I was like, oh, no. And then I was like, then Homelander arrives, and I was like, and then he kind of turns the other cheek, and is like, he kind of gets the boy behind him. And I was like, I like the conflict is still there, and that he still has, like, the animal inside of him, but also that I think he recognizes the bad parts of himself in a way that comic book Butcher never would.
Never has to.
It's much more nuanced. It's much more enjoyable, and I'm much more on my toes. It's like, where is this going to go now?
Yeah.
I love the idea that Homelander has a kid and he's alive, and where's that going to go?
Yeah.
So many great loose ends that it could go in any direction.
And that's why they did so much better with Butcher, and they gave Carl Urban more to do.
Also the dog.
Also, yeah, you get to see the dog who's
Trevor. Fuck it.
who's in the comic more. Like
he loves that dog. That dog will have sex on command for him.
Yeah,
it's funny.
It's a good joke. And you get to see his mother and those like little thing about his brother and all that. So you get some backstory.
I didn't get that.
Was that his mom? It was his mom.
No, it is his mom.
Yeah.
And his dad. I don't understand what happened with the brother. Was I supposed to?
It was like he got killed in like a fist fight or something, or or just kind of like did something wrong. And
the dad is Denethor. It's John Noble from.
Yes,
from
it is
Fringe.
John Noble, or the petition going around about him eating that.
The apple.
Yeah, and everyone's just like,
the tomato.
We need to remove that scene. That is, John Noble went way too far with that.
I think it's great. Leave it in. How dare you?
But you get a little bit of his backstory, and it's all earned and all feels good because you got this really fun supporting cast that's bouncing off of his ridiculousness.
I genuinely thought he was going to throw him off the balcony.
Yeah.
His dad, who doesn't like him. But no, that was good. Let's talk about people who we think have nothing to do. I'm going to start with Mother's Milk.
Yeah, poor MM.
I like him as
he's good. It's just his only motivation is my babies and my wife. He's
boring. Boo.
Booing.
Be a scarred anti-hero like we want you to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's a comforting presence. He's clearly like the dad of the group.
Yeah. He gets mad at them for singing "We Didn't Start the Fire."
Yeah,
This isn't a fucking Christmas vacation. Sit down.
he does not sanction buffoonery from people. Yeah. It's just he has nothing really to do. He's
loyal.
When your character's driving everywhere, when you're the driver,
boring.
You're like, what do you do other than just provide the voice of reason every now and then? Like, be kind of.
He's a great supporting character, but the support is literally what he does. He's a supporting character, but and he doesn't ever get like a cool action moment. Which I would juxtapose him with Frenchie, who I think is very interesting and I really like.
Frenchie gets that's another character who gets an arc in this a little more.
Yeah.
And I like how sincere that actor plays him, and how like you get to see more of. Oh no, your bad pizza.
Whatever am I gonna do?
Whatever you're gonna do. I think it's fine. You get to see more of like Frenchie's backstory, like his problems with his drug-addled friends.
Why they have bad beef with him?
Yeah, because you think that
really
guy's going to get overdosed and everything because he doesn't make it on time because he's tracking Lamplighter and all that, and because he leaves, Lamplighter kills Mallory's grandchildren, which you don't see, but we know that's what happened.
That's in the comic books.
That's in the comic books too. Might as well talk very briefly about Lamplighter, who's played by
Iceman from the X-Men, whatever his name is.
Let me see here, because he's an actor I do like, and I was like, oh, it's that guy.
He's from Earthsea.
Shawn Ashmore.
Yeah.
He's played by Shawn Ashmore. And at the beginning, it's funny how we were talking about Green Room beforehand, because the guy who plays the Mohawked guy, who they get the gig from, is Gecko in this.
Yeah.
The guy who's essentially doing torture porn because he can reglow his limbs.
I remember that.
Same actor. I was like, oh, hey, those two guys. Lamplighter in the comics has a bigger role vaguely, and he's much more of an evil man.
Yeah.
Like he's a disgusting kind of like cowardly older guy, like a disheveled kind of older dude. And this, he's Shawn Ashmore. He's younger, and he's regretful, and eventually is just out and out suicidal. Like,
which I thought that came out of nowhere, kind of.
Well,
I got the regret, and then I was like, really? You're gonna die? You're not gonna help them at all? Jesus.
Yeah, I think it was just they played it up, and I think it works better for this character than him just being just like a cowardly monster. Is that he's like, I did some awful things and it ruined my career, and now I live with regret. And I love that he helped them, but you didn't know if he was going to help them.
Yeah.
And so you get one full episode of Lamplighter essentially, and then it's over. But he gets to really shine, all puns intended, in that moment. You get to see him in his silly outfit that's from the comic originally, where he kind of looks like the first Green Lantern.
So dumb.
Yeah. And everyone knows it's dumb, and that's kind of great.
Yeah. I thought it was ironic that because he's Iceman in the X-Men, he's just Fireman.
He's Fireman in this one.
He's the other guy from the X-Men that he doesn't like.
That had to be
Pyro or
that
whatever.
had to be an inside. That had to be a bit of a joke in there.
I feel like it has to be. God damn it. Let's talk about Superpowered Hospital. That was pretty good.
That was pretty cool. That was really neat.
It's the guy with the long tentacle dick.
Yeah. Who is a character in he's the big Russian guy.
I remember.
And so it's like, oh, he's going to show up again, I bet. Maybe. Unless that was just a reference.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
That was, I got like, I was certain that someone was going to like, I was like, maybe one of the writers of The Boys is watching too much hentai or something. I was like, this is kind of
very
gross.
specific.
This is very gross.
But it's like,
What if I had a dick that was, I could make it as long as I wanted? Methinketh he is compensating for something.
Methinks.
But
that, I forgot what that character's name is in the comics, but he's a big Russian guy with a superpower schlong. And that goes to work.
I liked the one girl they're all afraid of.
Yeah.
Like when Lamplighter sees him, he's like, I was like, that is scary. She's out there now. Yeah. Now she's out in the world. So what's gonna happen with that?
She gets a ride at the end, and it's like,
I thought we were going to see her like throw a body out the window or something, but like, nope.
Well, and also I think that's kind of a reference to there is an X-Men surrogate group owned by Vought and trained under Vought by a Charles Xavier type who's just kind of like an awful cult leader and serial like sex offender.
Yeah, I remember that. It's the I can't remember what they're called, the Young Americans or something.
Something like that.
I mean, they're like the characters themselves actually want to do good. They're one of the few examples in the comics of superheroes that want to do good. And then like their leader is like a monster, and then like they bring in another member who's also shit. I think Billy accidentally kills or decides to kill them anyway, because why? Of course he does.
Yeah,
but
I think they just get all destroyed by the end of that arc. But because it's like each one of them have like some kind of troubled youth problems, and they're all like special episode characters.
You know what will be a great twist for this show that I think would really just make them go like, what do we do now? Is like, what if an actual cosmic supervillain comes?
Oh, that'd be fun. Like a Galactus.
Homelander would actually have to like do superheroing, and like, what would that be like? Would they be able to work together?
Yeah,
or would
like
it be
aliens.
a fuck up?
Aliens land, and it's just like,
is
boy.
he good enough to do that? Because he accidentally kills a kid when he goes to Africa and kills the gunmen or
I think
whatever.
he just doesn't care anymore. I think he's like, collateral, whatever. He stopped cares about humans.
No, I think he just did it because he's not. I mean, the way he takes off, he's got like a weird knot knee, and he's like, like he's not. They're not good at being superheroes
because they've not had to deal with anything that's like a challenge to them.
Which will bring us to when we get to the end, and I talk about the Seven versus the Justice League.
Yes,
I'll talk to you about.
And we could wrap it up by the end of that. We're running long. So
I think
kinda...
that would be really a huge. I mean, you have to like shell out budget, have like a Thanos guy come with an army, and you're like, now what do you do?
Yeah, and
Vought has to do actual superheroing.
Or you get another thing that I didn't talk about last time, which is also something I really, really like in tropes and cliches. The bad guy has to work together with the good guys to stop a greater force. Love that
That's
stuff.
good. Yeah.
Love that stuff.
We got to do another cliche.
Yeah, because I've been thinking of a lot. That's one of the big ones I thought is like, I love that. I love when that happens.
Or there's another, I can't remember the name of the comic book, but it's not unlike The Boys, and like superheroes are made and then a superhero occurs naturally. And they're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And he's really strong. He's like a Captain Atom, Dr. Manhattan-y guy, and he can kind of like see the future. And he's like as strong, like someone who's as strong as Homelander, but he has no control over him. And he's a big, what do you do now?
Mm-hmm.
And
like a dilemma.
But there's all sorts of great ways you can go. I don't think they'll do that because it's more expensive to do those ideas. But like, there's a lot of
There's a way you could get around it, but
there's a lot of great places you can take this story now. And like, this is why I said it felt like a filler episode, because like we're in a place, it's like the end of Age of Ultron, where I'm like, we're in a great place where it could go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really enjoy getting through all of this necessarily.
I didn't get to get that jump off point.
Whereas like I would have liked something a little more interesting happening, but there are some interesting stuff that happens. So.
Well, I want to bring up also like a character that should be more interesting, but they kind of don't know what to do with her, is Kimiko.
Yeah,
and it's a real shame. And I've seen some people be like, you've got this Asian actress playing an Asian character, and she doesn't talk or do anything other than just kind of be.
I did like the part where Frenchie like tries to kiss her, like man. I like that Frenchie is kind of, he means well a lot. He might even mean more well than Huey, but also like he's kind of slimy in the sense that like he would sell drugs and he probably has killed people that he shouldn't or whatever.
But he's reforming in front of us to be like someone who's like, I have something that matters to me, and I'm like,
yes.
And he, again, the actor playing him is so achingly sincere.
It's earnest.
And I'm like, I really like this guy, even if I don't like his character that much.
If he dies, I don't know what Kimiko is gonna do.
Yeah,
he seems to be the only thing that she likes.
The big thing that happens in this is also her brother shows up, and it's like, oh, we were both experimented on and all by
what's the Rising Sun?
It's
Dawn.
The something Dawn.
Yeah,
and it was some, they were in. They're Japanese
or Vietnamese,
but
Raising Dawn is Vietnamese and they're Japanese, something like that.
Yeah, that was kind of. I was like, so they're Japanese living in like. So, anyway, I can't get into it because it's just kind of. But yes, and then. Her brother comes back. He's kind of on the run. Yeah, you get a lot of scenes of them just kind of talking back and forth. And then
he has a great moment with Homelander when it's the oi cunt when Carl Urban gets his attention to save Huey, and he goes like, oh, I got one of these guys, and he just brings down the building.
I love that.
I loved it too because it's powers that aren't just laser eye or something generic,
or just heads blowing up, which is a big part of this season as well.
Oh, yeah, we gotta talk about that.
Yeah, that'll be because that's kind of like what do you do
that
with that
felt
then?
like in one of the previous Talking the Boys show or whatever afterwards, Eric Kripke was asked, there's a term called, I think it's fridging or something, when
Yes.
you kill
The
a female
heroine.
character to give your male character motivation. I
Putting
felt
them in the fridge. It's what happened to Kyle Rayner's girlfriend.
Yes.
And that's what
Major
gave the
Force.
title.
Major Force
And
puts her in the fridge.
In a fridge, and that created the term of the woman gets put in a refrigerator.
Yeah, Major Force is one of my favorite villains because he is the arch nemesis of Captain Atom, who's my favorite superhero. But because they both have a title or a rank, like they're
Captain Major.
yeah, or whatever. But I felt that the random person who can blow up heads was just like an out of nowhere shock element that I don't know if
Because
I don't know what could be satisfying about
Because that's what happens to Jennifer Esposito at the very beginning. The CIA connection is they're like, all right, I want you to talk to Vought, and then her head explodes.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
'Cause
we have a power to shut down plots.
Because can she do that to anybody?
Well, we should mention it turns out that it's
the senator.
The senator who's kind of vaguely Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah,
Yes,
I guess she is
she's
kind of.
kind of coded as that character because she's like.
But they
kind of
make
like,
her like an evil murderer. Are they trying to say something? I don't think Eric Kripke doesn't like Trump at all, so I don't think that's
Claudia
a thing.
Dumet plays Newman.
Yeah.
Victoria Newman, and
'Cause she kills the guy who comes in to replace A-Train.
Yeah.
Shockwave or
yeah,
whatever.
because I forgot. I was like, what happened to him? He was like, I thought it would have been great in that sequence. Like he starts running and his head explodes. You see a headless corpse just like running before it crashes.
Or like goes through the building and doesn't stop for like a few seconds.
Yeah,
That'd be
but
pretty cool.
his head is gone. Just like that would have been kind of neat.
Yeah.
Because at the end there's like the briefing. Like again, it reminds me of It reminds me of Dawn of Justice. With where it's like, all right, Superman's here, we're all ready to talk, and then the thing explodes.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I was like,
But at least that has thematics. Like it just felt like when this happens, it's just like and shock and all. Like
everyone's heads exploded. Pop.
But
pop.
can she do it to anybody? Because if she can do it to Shockwave, because he's
Superhero.
super powered, could she do it
to Homelander?
to Homelander, or Stormfront, or Maeve? I'm curious as to if she can. Why doesn't she?
And I feel like one thing with Huey is because this relates to Huey. His whole thing is like, I don't know where I belong in this group. Like I'm not like this radical mercenary. Like I don't think I belong. And by the end, he's like, well, I belong a part of Newman's like campaign. Like I'll help her out. Like that's a way I feel like I'm useful. Is he's taking kind of the moderate, the moderate like follow the process kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
See how that worked.
I feel like they should have introduced that earlier. Like been like, well, I need to get out of this.
Because it makes him because by doing it at the very end, it makes the whole season kind of waffly because he's just searching and searching.
Because he's searching, and he needs to like, so that the reveal that she is this assassin that has her own reasons for doing what she's doing, where it's like, I don't know if she's with Vought, I don't know if she's just an independent, what her deal is, and then make that reveal more impactful because she's like been talking to Huey and like everything.
It is nice to have an X factor that we don't know what's going to happen.
Right, that has a power that is so dangerous.
But there's a thing that I know we want to get to, and this feels like a detour from that.
Yeah.
So
well, it depends on what they do with it next season.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
But it makes you wonder, why doesn't she do it? Because she definitely doesn't like Homelander.
Right.
Or she was going to testify against him and organize this whole thing just to kill off her key witnesses. Because she's in the hearing when it happens.
And Homelander's in the hearing,
she's
right?
pretending to be scared when it happens. Because what's the name of the Billy Butcher's boss, the old lady?
The Mallory.
Mallory, yeah. She is there and she's protecting her. So it makes me wonder, like, she's pretending to be scared while blowing people's heads up.
Right.
So I'm like,
is Mallory in on it as well?
No, I doubt it.
Yeah.
But like I think
that's another thing about in the comics, Mallory is a man.
Yeah.
And he has a big role in it. Like
so
he's
is Elizabeth Shue's character.
Elizabeth Shue's character. Yes. But in that when they subdue Lamplighter, because she gives the option to kill Lamplighter. Do you remember that scene?
I do.
But that happens in the comic, but he actually does it. He beats him to death with the crowbar.
Yeah.
And in this, she's like, no, there's better uses for you, which is a smart move because it's.
I'm curious. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what that's all about, but it's cool to see where that's going.
Yeah, because in the comic, I remember them pulling Lamplighter out of the bus, and he's just like, well, and just beats him to death. Like that's what you get.
Yeah. I mean,
because their whole thing,
he burned her children alive. And stuff,
grandchildren to death.
So I mean, worse deaths could be given to someone like that. But I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do with Huey. If Huey's gonna keep being like, "Where do I belong?" Over the course of the show, it's gonna get kind of boring. I hope he kind of either like sacks up or is like, "This is terrible," and if the more I'm a part of this, the worse it's gonna make me.
And what's that going to do for Starlight as well? Now that even though she's firmly in the 7, and I'm assuming A-Train's back. Because now
but the Deep isn't.
The Deep isn't. Yeah, there's
that was
openings.
So hilarious.
there's openings.
One comeback is redemption, 2 is weakness, or whatever. And A-Train's like, "Woo, I'm back, baby, I'm out, bye."
Yeah,
like,
and then he's
so
like,
happy.
This program's bullshit. And he leaves, and that's when she blows his head up
too,
and ends that plot line straight.
Thank God.
I'm like, we don't need that anymore.
Yeah, that's
fine.
Served its purpose.
Yeah,
but yeah. Are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. Everything is just like, I think there have been some highs, there are some lows in this season, but ultimately the highs come from the characters that get arcs.
Yeah.
And come from the characters who get to do something.
Do you think Huey gets an arc, or do you think it's just kind of like, let's just put him here?
I don't know what they could do with him at this point other than just...
At some point, he's going to rejoin the boys, and you're going to have to make that a thing. You're going to have to make that, like, does he really want to come back? Is the violence... Because Carl Urban kind of is eventually, if he's going to be like Butcher in the comics, kind of poisons everything he comes into contact with.
Yeah.
He makes it more like him, whatever it is.
Even though in this, it's like, is he going to do that now that he has Homelander's son? Is he going to try to make him into something in his own image? Or, now that he's no longer connected with Becca because she's dead...
You think he would have told him some more stuff about Homelander? That, by the way, your dad is a monster, and when you grow
that's
up,
all to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, but we didn't see him tell him anything, did we?
No,
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, you would have said something like, when you grow up, you're probably going to have a standoff with your dad, and it's going to define your life. You're going to have to Man of Steel it. Like,
well, there it is.
Well,
there's the thing is, like, is it going to be like, we've got an ace in the hole, and that's this kid, and he's our anti-Homelander, but also that means we have to make a kid into a weapon, and there's the moral conundrum that's like,
it's Homelander, kind of the same thing.
Well, that's the plot. That becomes the plot to the drama. Is like, man, this is screwed up.
I think the best thing you could do is you got to Man of Steel it. You tell him to, like, keep your powers hidden and use them when you think it's right.
Conceal, don't feel.
Yeah, or something like that. Or like, you gotta you give him the Superman upbringing. You just give him a normal. I mean, his mom's right. Like, just give him a normal life.
And the rest
tell him that he's super powered. But
right. But Kevin Costner, when the tornado shows up, like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
You'll kick his ass later.
Yeah.
Oh, you could have saved me. Let's talk. Speaking of Man of Steel, let's talk about the Justice League.
Let's do something. Let's head to head, because I think we're gonna see. The one thing I said was, like, if we're doing a death battle, we're doing a head to head. You've got these characters that are intentionally meant to be parodies, very cynically, of these characters who have legacies of power.
Yeah. But I feel like, having watched this show, I have a pretty good idea of where their powers are.
Yeah.
It's like, I've seen Maeve stop a bus in episode 1 and be fine, and, like, fight Stormfront and other things like that. So I think I have a good idea. Let's start with
Stormfront's adjacent Black Adam, like...
Well, she is, like, no, because you're supposed to model them after the pastiches of the hero, not the villain.
Right.
So she would be Shazam.
Shazam, that's right, Shazam.
But let's start with the easy ones. Aquaman versus the Deep.
Oh, Aquaman.
I feel like, for sure.
For one thing, the Deep has no, like, weapon, and his connection to...
Not to say, at the very least, a magical holy weapon
right.
that can't be destroyed.
And he has no... His connection to animals, sea creatures, is more like parasympathetic and, like, parasocial, and he's just more like caught by their cause. Though he can wield sharks pretty effectively.
Yeah, like, I think his.
But so can Arthur Kent.
Have you seen the Aquaman's solo film, 2018? You should, because I feel like it gives us a little more insight. He's pretty powerful. There's a part in that scene where he comes up beneath the submarine and lifts it to the surface while it's submerged. I don't think the Deep could do that.
No.
In fact, the Deep doesn't seem to have
any
superpowers or super strength of any kind.
He can just...
That being
he's
said,
just a well-built dude who can, like, coax creatures to do his bidding.
But let me just say, I actually like the Deep as a character.
Oh,
I hope he gets some sort of redemption in a way.
I hope
and he comes to love himself because he has gills that are Patton
That was
Oswalt.
a lot of fun of him just coming to terms with this thing. Yeah. Again, you've got a good actor.
And then Anthony Starr just comes right up to him like, "Cover yourself up. You're disgusting." Like, God, what a dickhead.
Don't do that. That's so triggering.
But I think that Aquaman takes it pretty handedly as well, because they both seem to have equal abilities of controlling sea life, but Aquaman has better sea life. He has a kraken he can summon from the deep. It's fucking
you ain't
metal.
got no Leviathans.
No, like he summons a whale, and then that whale is instantly killed.
Right.
And I'm keeping this as like, now if we want to subscribe to, there's a podcast I like where the rules of a death battle should be they appear in like an arena and they see each other and see each other as a threat. So whatever they would naturally have on them, they can't summon for other shit.
Right.
And then they just fight. So I feel like in that scenario, Aquaman has the trident, the Deep has nothing, and then he gets killed.
Yeah, it's pretty handily.
Let's talk about, this one's not fair because he's not a pastiche of Batman, but Black Noir versus Batman. Let's say Ben Affleck Batman.
So
probably dead.
Yeah, if it's face to face with no prep time and no
But if he figures out he has the nut allergy, he goes down like a bitch.
Which
is what I'm saying.
I mean, there's a possibility that given Batman's capabilities, it's like, Alfred, you there? Help me out here. And he's like, get some blood type from him.
He can talk to
He can get outside
Alfred,
hell.
and he can summon the bat plane and stuff.
Yeah.
Black Noir can't fly.
He just has to hold off long enough and not get his head knocked off.
It's true. Black Noir doesn't seem to have. We don't know. We don't know enough about. Like you said, we don't know enough about Black Noir to do this.
Right.
But
he doesn't. He has a few like knives and things like that, but he doesn't have as many gadgets or things on him. But I mean, fist to fist. Bruce is dead.
I feel like
Bruce is dead because he is him, but a super powerful creature. Like he's a Superman.
Let's talk about this one. Can be interesting. A-Train versus the Flash. Is A-Train a murderer? Would he take the fight that far? Is the question. There's a part where he tries to kill Kimiko by slamming her head into the wall a billion times, but
Kimiko has superpowers as well.
Yeah, I don't.
Is super durable.
Ezra Miller's Flash versus A-Train's Flash. Who's faster? Is the real question.
Well, I mean, the Flash has to be faster because you never see A-Train go into that level that would be considered like a speed force.
Yeah,
like to the point that he can go
good points, baby.
faster than a perceivable timeline.
Yeah,
he's just speedy.
A-Train's pretty fast, but he ain't that fast.
Yeah, he's fast enough to obliterate someone by accidentally running into them. But I mean, that makes him as fast as like a train. A-Train,
or maybe even a little. I think he's probably faster than that because of the race.
He's as fast as like maybe a Japanese bullet train.
Okay, maybe.
But he's not fast enough to enter the speed force.
Yeah, like that race, he goes around it the track in like something like a seventh of a second or something like that.
Meanwhile,
so he's pretty fast.
Barry Allen would just be.
Yeah, the Bruce throws a batarang at him and he just goes into slow-mo world. I feel like there's no way the Flash probably wouldn't kill him because he's too jovial.
Right.
And he'd trip over himself or something. But A-Train, while more lethal, could never catch him.
Right.
So they keep running until one of them gets
A-Train
exhausted.
would probably be just like, I have to kill him. But Barry Allen or whoever Wally West or whoever you want to put him there would just be like, I'm gonna kill you, but I'll trump you like really bad.
Yeah. This is one that's.
The Flash is that great SpongeBob joke when they're all superheroes and SpongeBob's like, you want to see me go around the world? The animation doesn't change. You want to see me do it again?
That's pretty good. Let's talk about Wonder Woman versus Maeve. This is a good one.
Well, Wonder Woman has a sword that works. There's a
sword that can kill and harm a Doomsday.
Right.
This is another one.
There is a reveal in the comic, and if we're just talking spoilers about this comic, when Homelander goes on his rampage, Maeve tries to save Starlight by confronting him, and that's when we reveal the sword is just like plastic.
Oh, and she has a sword in the comics? I don't even remember.
Yeah, she has a sword and shield.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then she uses it, and it's like, this thing doesn't work, and he just punches her head clean off.
Oh,
so that doesn't, I'm imagining that sword isn't possibly real, because you never see her kill anybody with it.
It's amazing how the more brutal heroes seem to fare as well against the classic, more good heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like what would probably happen is they would get their nails done. Not to be misogynist or whatever, but
they probably
Wonder Woman doesn't seem to be the person who would kill her, and Maeve doesn't seem to be particularly
interested.
But if they both appeared and perceived the other as a threat and fought, I feel like Wonder Woman has just more combat experience.
And yeah, she has centuries
Because
of
here's the thing
combat
about-
experience, right?
Yeah.
Just and also she's got the the
clanks,
gauntlets.
yeah.
And Maeve is essentially a person with advanced ability, and most of the rest of it is vague. And I wish they'd explain more about her. She could fly, right?
No, because remember the airplane, Homelander has to fly her out,
That's right.
so she can't fly.
She can't fly.
But Wonder Woman can't fly either.
Right,
yet.
Diana can't
Yet,
fly either.
according to
she
Z
can
Snipes.
sometimes, but she can't in this situation. She can't.
I think that Wonder Woman will probably take that one. Here's a funner one because I'm trying to like find different matchups. Cyborg versus Translucent. Do you think Cyborg could see him with his technology?
Surely.
You think something would like
because he'd have infrared, and I think the infrared would be able to cut through. But
Would
the
Cyborg
thing
shoot
about
a missile up his
Translucent
butt?
is like he says, "I'm not invisible. My skin is made of like some kind of
really dense, hard diamond material that
Yeah.
can turn translucent.
which also makes him near invulnerable as well."
Yeah.
So I don't know how strong he
except
is.
for the butt.
Right, except if you
Would
or-
Cyborg shoot a missile up
up
the
his
butt?
ass.
Could he aim it that well?
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
it could be anything. Could get him down his mouth as well. But I honestly think that's a pretty good matchup because, like, I don't know if the heat seeking would work. It depends on if he can, obviously.
Does Translucent show up invisible? He's mostly invisible.
He's mostly invisible
He's
all
in
the
the
time.
bathroom invisible. So
Right.
like he would show up, Cyborg would be like, "What's going on here?" He would feel the unease of the
And given that he's also kind of a underhanded like prick, he probably would like try to get the stop on Cyborg and like snap like any kind of circuits he can to disable him.
yeah.
He would do some
But Cyborg's
dicky stuff like that.
Cyborg's technology is Mother Box, which is like living technology that can kind of
Yeah, so he may
address
try
itself.
and then be like, "I see you," and just
I don't know. I feel like he could go down to the wire. I feel like how brutal does he want to be? Could he kill Cyborg? Does he have the means just by being invisible?
we
to
get
do
a
that?
little bit of an idea how strong he is because he's strong enough to like throw Huey around,
Yeah.
and so he's not just like it's not like
But
talking
Butcher
about the
is,
deep.
But Butcher gives him the business too. He
Yeah.
spits on him, and when he sees him, he kind of lights him up. Even though like Translucent probably doesn't feel it. I didn't get the sense that like he was that much more powerful that like a strong Carl Urban couldn't maybe win.
Right.
Which I feel like if that's
he's-
true,
but
then
with that
Cyborg
skin, he's more invvulnerable. So like shooting him
It
won't
goes
do
on-
much good or anything like that.
it goes on forever.
Yeah.
Is what happens.
It's a good fight. It's a good fight.
I think eventually Translucent would get tired and Cyborg would get like use a plasma cannon to his mouth or something.
Right.
That's probably, but I think it goes on for like forever.
Yeah,
like
it's
for
a
like
good it's a
week.
good long scrap, and eventually I think Cyborg's smart enough and has the technology to be, and also being that he's a cyborg, he doesn't exhaust like that, so he'd be like, I can think this
probably
through and follow his patterns because also he's reckless. Much like all the characters in the
Yeah,
boys,
that's a
he's
good point.
reckless and narcissistic, and would probably give away his tell and be like, "All right, I got you."
Let's talk about the big one. This one's
Superman versus
Superman
Homelander.
versus Homelander. How do you
Oh.
think? I think, to be honest, they're both about equal.
Give or take a few powers that Homelander doesn't have.
Yeah.
No,
We-
ice breath.
Let's
no-
do BVS Superman.
Okay.
Because we know what he's capable of. No ice breath, because that's just if the Snyder Cut was out and he still has the ice breath, I'll move that into canon. or
Okay.
whatever. But so he has X-ray vision, heat vision, invulnerability, flight, super strength. I think Homelander has all those. I don't know how X-ray vision would help in this fight particularly, but
Maybe in seeing that because Clark's like biology is different because he's not human, he's Kryptonian.
yeah, but I think like all the organs are in the same.
Are the same,
place,
essentially.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question. What if his heart is in his brain? Like,
Yeah,
does that change anything?
Because I think he's like Homelander's someone who's like, I want to get it done as quick as possible. You know, like he's like try to find a way to kill him quickly.
Would
It
Superman
would probably just come down to temperament. Like, because I've seen a picture recently of like Superman just standing there while Homelander just like curses at him, and it's like that's these two characters essentially, and just like
You're probably right. That's
gonna wait
true.
you out.
And I feel like at some point he would try the heat vision, and then he would be like, "Oh," like he would try to incinerate Superman. Superman would still be there, and he would be like, "Fuck." He'd be scared.
Yeah.
Or something.
He's like, I've not had to run into something like this before. While Superman has had a history of running into creatures as powerful or more powerful than him, and he's had to be craftier.
We know he'll kill because he's killed Zod. Superman will kill. Don't get me started, internet. I will have this argument again. It's the right thing to do in that scenario. I don't know if he goes. I don't think Superman goes immediately for the kill. It took a long time for him to work up to like, I gotta kill Zod.
Right. So do you think it would be more
Homelander
like,
would definitely kill him.
Oh yeah, of course he would kill him. But he also, I don't think, could. Because I think in the end, he is a product of a man-made concept, and Superman is beyond that.
That's true.
And I think some way that puts him above Homelander's capability. And I think that you would end up with a Zod-type fight that is rough and rowdy and violent until he has to just put Homelander down.
And I think that Homelander, like a bully who's never been punched in the mouth, would cower down.
Would
cower down at some
He'd Draco
point.
Malfoy at that moment.
I think he would. I think once Superman really gave him one, he'd be like, all right, let's talk about this.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, we're not talking about this.
Like, I feel like, and how, like, what's the strongest thing we see Homelander do? Like, again, like, they're so closed with how strong he is. All we see him do is, like, we've seen him punch through a guy's heart or mush a guy's head.
Yeah.
But other than that, he just uses the heat vision.
Because it's easy. Because he's not about showing off capability, because he has no equal.
Because he's lazy.
Yeah, well, he's lazy and he has no equal. He
But
has nothing to go up against. He could just be like, I just want to get it done. Zap, you're dead.
He's taken down a plane. What's the heaviest thing we've seen him lift up?
Those rock? No, because he's out of commission a bit after Kimiko's brother drops.
I don't think he's like
him.
knocked out. I think it's just more like, God, it's hard to get out of here.
Yeah.
Superman, we've seen pull a oil tanker.
Yeah.
And like it's nothing. Like, so.
Yeah, we don't see him. And also, I think it's just that, again, Homelander's lazy and narcissistic, and he's like, I'm not lifting anything I don't have to.
Yeah. I feel like just sheer workmanship and experience, Superman takes it.
Yeah.
Let's make it interesting. This is the final one. What if we do all of like the 7 versus all the Justice League? Or what if you do like Homelander gets Queen Maeve and Black Noir against Superman? Neither of those two can fly.
Yeah.
I feel like
I think Superman still got him whooped.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, internet. You can send me your memes later.
Yeah. And I mean, again, a lot of this has to do with a group of characters who have had multiple versions of themselves. Obviously, we centered on one particular. We'll do, you know, the Snyder versions, because we're familiar with those. But even then,
if it's Christopher Reeve Superman, there's no he can do anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
He'll take that S off his chest and throw
a cellophane S at you, and you'll disappear down a cavern forever. Because that's not killing somebody like killing Zod is, apparently. But
you could put him in the Shadow Realm in the Infinity Zone or whatever.
Tim Burton's Batman versus Black Noir. Oh, that's a rough one. I don't know if he could do it.
Keaton would be pretty scrappy.
He would be scrappy.
But he would go down. He wouldn't go down easily.
I think Keaton's Batman is more intuitive than people give him credit for, but I also don't think he's ever seen anything like a Black Noir.
No,
I think it would kind of scare him.
What about
Clooney?
No, Bale.
Oh, like there's just no way. He lives in a world where that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's like
Bane is the closest thing as it comes with, and Bane's just a man.
Do you remember seeing that you're in Batman v Superman where Superman comes out of the sky and just tackles Doomsday into that tanker and just. Yes. Someone said that like there was a meme and it was like Batman could beat Superman. Then it just shows Superman do that. And I'm like, no, he can't. He's beaten him a handful of times when he was very clever.
Yeah.
Batman's great, but
time is necessary, because if it was like Batman's got this much time, Noir's got this much time, they meet in an alleyway, Batman's got him whooped because he can at least plan traps.
I agree.
Because we don't know Black Noir's intelligence. He's savvy. He knows how to play the piano. He knows how to tinkle the ivories and all that.
Yeah.
But we don't know if he has like just rational thinking, or if is he just a monster.
I think if you put Black Noir up against Wonder Woman, he'd kill her.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he's strong enough.
He's brutal enough, and he wouldn't let somebody
he tossed around Starlight, but then again, Queen Maeve took him out with a nut allergy.
Starlight.
Oh yeah,
Starlight up against.
She's a 7.
Yeah.
Who would be her analog? Nobody really.
Dazzler.
Plastic Man. I don't know.
Well, I guess it would be Dazzler.
But here's the thing about Starlight's powers that I kind of didn't like when they did this season is her powers are tied to is there power around
her. Yeah.
So what does she do if she is super strong, but I don't think she's like black. She's not Black Noir strong because he
Clearly
gives her
not.
the business. So
But
like
that power she has can really
I feel like
take someone out if it needs to.
yeah,
If they're in like a stadium, then yeah, she's got power.
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
It's just I don't know what her equal would
Would
be.
it run out before the other person
Gets there.
gets to her though? I feel like Ben Affleck's Batman, if he took like an hour to plan it out, he'd get her. Because if he can get Superman, I feel like he could get her.
He could get her. So he can get her.
I feel like she would have a good one against Cyborg because Cyborg is all
Yeah, even with the
electron.
mother
He would use his
box.
powers against him. Or
Yeah,
something.
even with the mother box.
Wonder Woman, no. Aquaman,
Well, I mean,
probably not.
could with Wonder Woman.
Could Wonder Woman?
Could with Aquaman, of course. Because if she's got the power, she could just, again, that zapping that she has the capability of, burns retinas out. Like, it'll just blind you.
That's a good point. But does it blind you permanently?
It could, I think.
Oh, yeah, didn't she say that in the first episode? That's
Yeah.
true. But Aquaman's trident, here's the thing is like, I feel like superpowered beings have like extra durability where something doesn't affect them as much as it would a normal person. So like, I don't know if like that would blind them. Because remember, but the lady can explode Shockwave's head, but could she do it if she can do it to anybody, then what's the value of Homelander's superpowers if they can't protect him from that? So I don't know.
It's a strategic use at that point.
Also, that trident, if you haven't seen the movie, can like summon lightning. So
Oh, yeah, that kind of puts you at the.
it's pretty powerful. But then can she use that against him?
Wait, well, since we're talking about that, what about? I think this will be the last one since we were.
Okay.
Is Stormfront against
Shazam?
Shazam?
Oh, yeah.
Because
His powers are magic, whereas hers are rooted in science.
They've both been around a long time.
She will have more experience with her powers than Shazam would for sure.
Because she's lived with it for almost 100
By
years.
the end of Shazam, he's okay with his powers.
Oh,
He's-
so we're talking DCU Shazam.
Oh,
yeah.
comic book Shazam, I feel like he's just too powerful.
Yeah.
He fights Superman in Kingdom Come. Like, he's
true.
really powerful.
Yeah, you got to stick with a new. Yeah, if we're keeping with the DCU.
And even like a lot of the comic books, his inexperience with superpowers is a thing. He sucker punches Superman one time and he gets the business. So like he would be silly, and in the movie he sucker punches Dr. Savannah, and then Savannah takes him into the sky and he starts to whimper. Like I feel like she might take it.
She might take him because she's more ruthless and has more nuance with her abilities.
Yeah, and at the end,
and she can fly.
Yeah.
And so can he.
And at the end of Shazam, when he's fighting Savannah, have you seen Shazam yet? No? Okay, it's fine. At the end of Shazam, it's a great movie. You should see it.
I know.
At the end of it, he's pretty good. He can fly really fast, but I feel like it took him a long time to get there, and he would still be kind of not as smart as he should be with his powers. He doesn't win that by being more powerful. And I feel like she's pretty ruthless. I think she'd take it.
She'd take him,
I
I
think
think.
she'd kill him. I think Superman would destroy her. I think
Oh, yeah.
I think even Wonder Woman might
Be
destroy
able
her.
to, yeah.
But and also he is really strong. He picks up a bus by himself. Yeah. No, she takes it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. She's just too powerful. She takes like 3 of them to take her down in the show.
Yeah.
Or plus a tiny boy. I don't know. I mean, but how strong is the boy? It's really hard. I'm pretty sure the Justice League takes the 7.
Yeah.
In any
handily.
team-up.
Handily. The
Because
only,
what'll
the
happen
only
is-
outlier would be Homelander.
Is how quickly does Homelander just cut through 2 or 3 of them?
Yeah.
But then, like Superman, I think Superman would just take them all, like with all of them on his back. He would just beat up the ones that aren't on his back and then
Yeah.
tie them up. Yeah, I feel like it takes it in. Sorry, internet. I know you guys want to think Homelander could do it, but I think he's like Donald Trump. He talks tough, and then you punch him in the mouth, and he goes down like a little girl.
Or more aptly, a Richard Spencer. You punch him in the mouth,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden his career crashes.
Well, this has been The Movie Date with Rob and Matt, a podcast for people
Who
love movies.
don't want to be too smug about it.
That's right. I guess, were we smug this episode?
Probably not.
I don't think so. I think we're pretty
We're
reserved.
talking about the boys.
Unless you're like a Nazi and you're like, I disagree with that. I
Yeah.
think Stormfront is great.
That's too bad, man.
Well, we're sorry.
Get better.
But yeah, you can find us on Podbean, and you can find us on Facebook, iTunes. YouTube is one of the main places we are at. So please check us out.
Check
and
out our old
We'll have some
episodes.
spooky episodes
Oh, yeah.
next
I'm very
time.
excited for this.
Me too.
Get them spooky, scary skeletons out. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Take it easy. Be
Bye-bye.
well.